We are live, folks. How's it going? Nice to see you, everybody. Welcome to today's podcast, YouTube hangout situation. My name is Dustin Cormier, and this is How to Rock Astrology. I'm very happy to be hanging out with you folks here. This is, of course, a live stream, so anybody that wants to say hello, feel free to throw yourself in there, and I'll say hello to you. Feel free to ask any questions along the way. My voice is a little bit low because I went to a Christmas party yesterday, and I can tell I was singing and playing guitar and that my voice is a little lower. But it's not bad enough that I can't do what I'm doing. And I'm excited for today. Today we are going to be discussing Pluto in Aquarius for all the 12 individual rising signs. This is something I've been revving up for quite a little while now. We have already done, I did a Pluto in Aquarius introduction video. It's like a, you'll see it on my channel. And it's something that is a really good, my first Pluto in Aquarius introduction video. It's a good introduction to a lot of the themes we're going to be talking about in this video, at least in terms of the collective. The collective is going to be affected by Pluto in Aquarius in a certain way. And everybody has to deal with this in the way through their individual chart, as well as through the collective. The collective affects the individual chart. So watch that video if you want to see a little bit more about what Pluto in Aquarius is all about. Now, in today's video, we're going to be discussing this, how it affects each individual rising sign. You might have seen some of my YouTube shorts that I've put out recently. I'm just trying to play around on TikTok and stuff like that to get myself out there and try different platforms and formats. This video is going to expand a little bit on that as well. Just what does Pluto in Aquarius mean outside of what has been happening on this planet? Pluto in Aquarius is its own archetype that can just stand alone. And we're going to talk about that generally as well within each rising sign. So strap in. I've got my water. I've got all my necessary items here. And I'm ready to have a good time of hanging with you guys on this Sunday and have some fun talking about astrology. So as I said, feel free to ask any questions. It is a live stream. I'll do my best to answer individual questions so long as it all caters to the general consciousness happening here. So, just for a little bit of backdrop, I've been talking about Pluto in Aquarius on a few different people's channels, and there's a few important themes kind of happening. We can see that in my previous videos, we mentioned that Neptune has gone through this whole thing with Pluto. Maybe I'll see if I can actually kind of throw up a little piece of what this is all about. Neptune has gone through this whole thing with Pluto, where Neptune's basically came conjunct to Pluto around 1882. 1891 was the full conjunction in Gemini. Since then, Neptune has been going ahead of Pluto. But in the 1950s, what happens is Pluto actually comes in closer orbit than Neptune to the Sun. This happens every time Pluto is around Leo, Virgo area. So what happens is it almost looks like Neptune is going slower than Pluto. This happened for about, say, 50-ish years. By 2012, Neptune was starting to speed up again from Earth's perspective. Remember, this is from Earth's perspective. It seems like Neptune is moving slower, but that's because Pluto came closer to the Sun than Neptune. Then, around 2012, Neptune started bouncing back. And it was by 2026, Neptune will be back to the exact sextile to Pluto. So this is a big chunk of time where these two were locked in a sort of sextile function. Now Neptune is blazing forward. And this is an interesting thing in relation to what exactly Neptune and Pluto mean. Neptune really is this spiritual planet. And Pluto is like mob, boss, collective agency. So now that Neptune is moving ahead, this kind of resonates with everybody, as Neptune pulling through in spirituality and metaphysics, becoming an important part of how the collective framework of survival works for everybody. Neptune, whenever it pulls ahead, this same thing it happens every 250 years, with Neptune being launched into this, being tense with Pluto and then moving forward there. So that's something I've been speaking to in my other videos. Now, where Neptune is now, it is in Pisces. Pluto is in Capricorn. In 2023, basically, all of these are going to meet up in this kite formation. Pluto in Capricorn, Uranus in Taurus, and Pisces, Neptune in Pisces. And any planet at the end of Virgo is going to be affected by that. And then by 2025, more like 2026, really, all these planets are tap dancing on their cusps at the same time. And then in 2025, pretty much 2026, around the same time, these three planets are all coming into masculine signs at the same time. So this has a lot of interesting things to think about. We're going to talk about it within each individual sign again, right? Now, something else that's significant, we're going to talk about how Saturn's transits are important to this Pluto narrative. The reason this is because Saturn is the dispositor of Aquarius. So when Pluto is transiting Aquarius, Saturn is going to act as the dispositor. It's the channel. And dispositors are a really big thing in Vedic astrology. The dispositors are the thing that really kind of brings everything. It's the channel. It's the main channel for anything happening in a sign. So if you have any personal planets in Aquarius, we know that you need to look at the strength of Saturn to know how those planets are going to do in Aquarius in the natal chart. This is the same thing for any planet transiting Aquarius or Capricorn. So Pluto has already been transiting Capricorn for a long time, since 2008. It's been like 6 years. Or 8 years. 18, I meant to say. It's been about 18 years that Pluto has been in a Capricorn. And it's going to finally shift into Aquarius around 2024. So we're going to read about how Pluto's been resting in the root chakra. This is ruled by Saturn. Saturn is the dispositor of the root chakra in Vedic astrology. And Capricorn and Aquarius. We're going to see that as we go along. So this is relevant to what's happening with you in your personal chart and how it resonates with what the root chakra through Capricorn and Aquarius has to do with your rising sign. So wherever Saturn is in transit is going to be important to what Pluto is doing in Aquarius. This is relevant in this time around 2023 when Saturn is conjunct Neptune. Eventually, Saturn is going to be conjunct Neptune in Aries in 2026. And this is the crazy sort of thing there's a lot pointed there. Around March of 2026, Saturn and Neptune are going to enter the gate of Aries pretty well together at the same time. And then in 2027, there's going to be a North Node eclipse on Pluto and Aquarius while Saturn is conjunct Neptune in Aries. That is a pretty hard, crazy cosmic coincidence. And this has the opportunity to bring great good as well as great difficulty. The world will kind of be on weak knees at this point. The economy and everybody will try to be holding things together. And the world is changing through Pluto and Aquarius, as I've already talked about in my other videos. We're going from a place of sovereignty of government to sovereignty of the individual. This is something I've been saying. Everybody, with regards to Pluto and Aquarius, is going to be learning how to connect their individual entrepreneurship and financial fiscal responsibilities and their legacy. These all relate with Aquarius in the 11th house. It's gains. It's like residual income. So Aquarius being the collective 11th house, in a way. The things related to finances are going to be put under a pressure, a stricture in the collective. And if you watch my other videos, you'll note that every time Pluto comes into the area of Capricorn and Aquarius, big world shifts tend to happen, especially when the North Node or the South Node touches Pluto in Capricorn and Aquarius. It's a huge part of what my other videos are all about. So big shifts are happening in the world when this happens. For example, America pulled itself out of the womb of Britain when Pluto was in Capricorn. We all know that the States has Pluto in Capricorn in its natal chart when the Declaration of Independence was created. So that's an example of the kind of sovereignty of a whole nation to come out of the grip of Mother Britain, the crony Mother Britain that was kind of the consciousness at the time. America said we want to be independent and individual. Nowadays, all the countries and nations are figured out. What's happening is there's an individual sovereignty that's coming from people on their phones and, being able to create your own world, your own political world through your individual sovereignty. The individual is becoming the king of today's time. Partly how we can kind of see this is, for example, Donald Trump is somebody who got into American politics as a mercantile person. He wasn't necessarily grandfathered in by the governmental system that was typical of America and its patriarchy. Donald Trump used public sway, the power of media and the internet, and the charm of the individual to breed a reception to the collective. It says Pluto in Aquarius relates to individuality through the collective. I always say there's an old poem from a 70s album. It's called Cosmic Sounds. It's this poem put to music. And the poem for Aquarius, it's got all this 12 signs. And the one for Aquarius says, "In the opal light of Aquarius, all men can blend and still be what they are." I should say all people. All people can blend and still be inherently what they are. And this is what happens in Aquarian times, where you want to be an individual, but you want your individuality to serve you through the needs of the collective. You almost want to be a channel for the needs of the collective. This is why it's important to the symbology of Aquarius. We know Aquarius is the water bearer, right? I wonder if anybody knows the connection there. I mean, of course, the Western tradition has its own connection. Water relates to Venus. It relates to sustaining. It's the sustenance. Ernst Wilhelm talks about Venus as being related to water. It rules the water chakra, the Svadhisthana chakra, the second chakra. And it relates to sustaining desires, sustaining the heart, sustaining the mission in life. So it's kind of like he correlates it to like the soft padding in the soles of your shoes. That's Venus. If you go try to run up a mountain in just bare feet, it's going to hurt you in the end of things. But if you have Venus, if you have soft padding of heart, of emotions, of life's enjoyment and fulfillment in the subjective, biological, emotional layers of human bonding and intimacy and just personal needs, earthy needs. It's all Venus stuff. This is the water. And if you have these things, then you will be able to sustain yourself. You'll be able to keep climbing up the mountain for longer and with more energy. You'll lose less energy. This is very much what Venus is all about, So with regard to, so how does this relate with Aquarius? Well, we know that Saturn rules Capricorn and Aquarius anciently. Aquarius is the positive side of the root chakra. Capricorn is the negative side, and Aquarius is the positive side. And Aquarius is moving up towards Cancer in the 6th chakra. The 6th chakra is ruled by Cancer and Leo. At this point, I'm just going to show this little picture here. This is, again, how the Vedic people consider the chakras. We can see that Aquarius and Capricorn rule the root chakra. So what happens is Leo, the spirit in summer, after summer solstice, the spirit decides to create and put into material manifestation. And so spiritual creativity works its way through material manifestation in Capricorn. And we're usually subservient. So Leo is the great creation power. But by the time the energy gets to the material world, we have spent a lot of time dealing with our own material capacities, and it can be difficult. I see we have a question. Mysteriously Kind has asked what sign we are on. We are still just in the introduction, my friend. I'm going to not spend too much time on this, but this is just an introduction of Pluto and Aquarius. Now, Aquarius leads up from the root chakra all the way up to Spirit in Cancer and Leo. Cancer and Leo are the luminaries, the inner light. Aquarius is the positive side of the root chakra, building up towards Spirit. And the Spirit is an internal phenomenon. When we have Pluto coming from Leo through Capricorn, we see the world transforms to the tone of sort of industrial spirit, of having a government system, having financial regulation, having financial stricture. And the Spirit is at its peak with like Pluto and Leo. And then eventually, once it comes to Aquarius and Capricorn, the Spirit has spent so much time in the material side of things. Now we get sick of the material, and we start to desire spirit once again. And it's the individual spirit that counts in the age of Aquarius, or in any Aquarian times. So this is relevant to Pluto and Aquarius being the water bearer. Because the water bearer metaphor in Vedic conception, when you look up the ancient texts on what describes Aquarius, the water bearer, in old Vedic texts, what you'll read is that Aquarian things relate to, it's like building a community well. Imagine 3,000 years ago, there was the river, and people tried to live close to the river, but not everybody could or wanted to live that close to the river. Most of the rich folks lived closer to the river because that's where the fertility and the ganja and the clean, pure water is. But a lot of people who did important work had to go out and live in the fields, in the farmlands, and they couldn't always just go to the river. They might have to walk a mile to get to the river. So it would suck for them to have to carry water on their heads. It's a waste of energy, So what would happen, probably in times when Pluto was in Aquarius, but whenever there was Aquarian influences at that time, what would happen is they would build a well. The community would say, we all have our individual jobs. I got to tend my corn. I got to tend my rice would probably be a better vegetable grain to typify the Asian countries at this time, the continent. I've got to tend to my corn. I got to tend to my cows. I've got my own business to deal with, Leo. I've got my own kingdom. I've got my own reality, my own things I got to deal with. Now, everybody would be well served by there being a well, though. This is Pluto and Aquarius. The individual need is being served by our collective desire to have individual ease. And the water literally will make everybody's life easier. So when we all come together to do a collective thing that'll be good for everybody, our individuality is ultimately served by that, even though we are subservient to the needs of the collective at the time that the well is being built. The self in one is the self in all. And when we all come together and do things for the needs of the collective, the individual is ultimately served. Leo is ultimately served when we all work together in this root chakra. So this is why Pluto in Aquarius is becoming this individual sovereignty, where Pluto in Capricorn punches and checks the infrastructure for its own sake. But once Pluto comes to Aquarius, something happens where all in humanity is looking to build on our collective needs in order to serve ultimately the spirit of the individual through, Aquarius coming up to Cancer and Leo, right? That now the energy is moving Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer up to the 6th chakra. And Pluto, of course, is the slowest moving planet. All these planets are going through the chakras all the time. It takes the sun a year to go from Capricorn at the winter solstice up to Cancer at the summer solstice and then back down to Capricorn at the winter solstice. That's the solar energy is moving through our chakras once a year. Mars goes through every 2 years. Jupiter goes through every 12 years. They all have their different resonances going through these chakras. And they all are doing different things for the chakras as they move through. And the slower a planet moves, the more algae it picks up along the way. They say a rolling stone gathers no moss. The sun, the moon especially, gathers no moss at all. The moon is the most fastest moving thing from Earth's perspective, which is from the geomantic perspective. That's what's relevant. That's what all astrologers know. So fast-moving planets don't get dinged by and stuck in the energy in the same way. Pluto is a very slow-moving planet, and so it collects a lot of algae, a lot of karma, and it affects a lot of change in whatever space that it's in as it moves through the chakras. And this is Pluto. This is the nature of Pluto, is that while it's moving through wherever it's moving through, whatever you have going on in terms of its dispositor, in this case being Saturn, whatever Saturn means in your chart, whether it's your Atmakaraka, whether it rules your moon, your rising sign, your sun sign, those tend to be important things. Whether it rules an important house in your chart, like the 5th house or the 9th house, or if you're an earth or an air sign, Pluto in Aquarius is doing something significant, and Pluto in Capricorn would have also been significant too. So each individual sign is going to be affected by Pluto and Aquarius differently, and that's what we're talking about today. Now, I don't want to go too long on just talking about this intro, but ultimately, as we move along, we're going to talk about what it means for each individual sign, and as well, we're going to talk about what's happening in June 2030, when we see Saturn has moved from Aries up to Gemini by June 2030. Saturn will be with Uranus in Gemini at this point, and also the South Node happens to be in this axis at this time too. This is going to be a time where Saturn is going to shake loose a lot of the garbage that it picked up while it was conjunct Neptune in Aries. That's a very sensitive time. Now, eventually, what we see happening is in December of 2035, the North Node is going to be with Saturn in the sign of Leo. And there's going to be what's going to happen at this point is that while we have all been working out, we've all been building the well. Something is going to happen at that point where there's going to be a collective transformation of how the individual relates to the collective. And this is, I think, going to be a potent one. You can watch the Pluto and Aquarius introduction video to know why it's so potent. There's a lot to talk about. But when this is all happening, Saturn, by being in this place, by being conjunct Pluto, by being conjunct the North Node in Leo. And this is 2035, folks. So this is a long ways away, but I'm just pointing this out because it's going to be relevant for everybody in different ways at the time that it comes. However, you are dealing with Pluto in Aquarius, especially from all the stuff that's happening in 2027, 2028. Whatever happens there, the paint is going to be very wet in the world in terms of economy, infrastructure, and how everyone lives and survives in their life. And by the time 2035 comes, what will have happened is that we will have all been working on the well. And now in 2035, we are going to be called through Saturn being with the North Node. Remember, the North Node is a point of extreme manifestation for things that are needed in the moment. We're going to be letting go, South Node, letting go of Pluto and Aquarius. We'll be letting go of the need to build the individual well, in order to take care of our own crops, our own kingdom, our own thing that we have going on with Saturn and the North Node in Leo. So this is my main sort of shtick that we see happening. And, you know, at the same time, a lot of this is going on. While this is all happening, Neptune is going to be in Aries. And we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. So I'm just going to quickly say hello to everybody here. My friend Teresa is hanging out with me and giving me lots of love here. And I always appreciate you seeing you, Teresa. Porter Z Court is hanging out here too. Nice to see you. And so is Johnny Barker, my friend Susie Underwood. And AS is also hanging out with us here too, as well as Venezia Elena. So these are just the folks who have gone on and said hello on the live stream. So I always like to say hello to everyone hanging out. Now, and hi Judy. I'm sure I'm going to get a few more hellos after this. So, this has been quite an intro. Didn't expect for it to go on this long. Should have expected that it might. But as we watch, I think eventually, for those who are watching the live stream after it's live, you'll be able to see the changes in the slides of, because I'm going to have the time code pointed out so you can see when each individual rising sign has started. And for now, we are finally, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we've got a lot to go through here. I think it's going to be a long live stream. I'm going to try not to make it too long-winded. We've got a few more friends saying hello. Irene Mack, 4 blessings. Stephen the Jupiterian, and Judy. Now we are going to start diving in and looking forward to what does Pluto in Aquarius and Neptune in Aries mean to your individual rising sign. First, this is me doing like the check, take one. We are going to first start diving into Pluto in Aquarius for Aries Rising. And maybe I'll just show my little slide here just to start the train rolling. This is going to be our first sign today, folks. And thank you everyone for watching with me so far and enjoying the intro that we just moved through. Now, I don't want to go too long with all these. There's a lot to contain in, so I might just occasionally try and talk a little bit faster than usual just to get in all the information that we can get in this video. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Aries Rising, Pluto coming into Aquarius. Now, Pluto has been in Capricorn in Aries' 10th house since about November of 2008. Now, any planets or points in Capricorn have been dealt with according to their strengths and power in the sign of Capricorn. So, there's a lot to be said here I gotta find my other notes. whatever is going on in Capricorn for you, whatever planets are there, it would be, you have to consider that Pluto is neutral. Pluto doesn't do better or worse in any sign. So when Pluto is visiting Capricorn, how we know how well it's going to go ultimately depends on what is happening with its dispositor and any planets that are in there in Capricorn. There are many ways to convey what might be happening here. For example, we could say, Mars is exalted in the sign of Capricorn. So since Mars is exalted in Capricorn, if you've got Mars in Capricorn and Pluto's been visiting Capricorn, especially if you're an Aries rising, you've probably been doing well. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. Now, the theme for Pluto in Capricorn for Aries is your self-efforts towards root chakra stabilization. Remember, Pluto's been in Capricorn, and that's been part of this cycle being at the latter end of the cycle of spiritual creation and manifestation. So we're in the manifestation period of matter. While Pluto's been in Capricorn, it's relating to the root chakra. For Aries, this has been in your 10th house. Your self-efforts towards root chakra stabilization were tested through the 10th house, and this relates to career, right? And Pluto is a planet of subordination a lot of the times. So you've probably gone from being subordinate to being a leader in turns related to your career and your life direction this whole time. Now you're building a legacy through the 11th house of Aquarius. Now, a little bit of extra consciousness here is that Pluto, while Pluto is in Aquarius, Neptune has been in Pisces for a long time. And Pisces, how Jupiter in Pisces went for you ultimately depends on its dispositor, which is Jupiter. Jupiter rules the 9th and 12th houses for Aries Rising. So whatever's going on with Jupiter in your chart is going to convey the soul delicious yearnings that you've gotten out of Neptune and Pisces. Pisces relates to the 2nd chakra, and now Neptune's coming up to the 3rd chakra of Aries. Aries, your 3rd chakra, is also your 1st house. So the will of the solar plexus chakra is part of how you establish your identity. When Neptune is coming from the 12th house of Pisces, and that's your 2nd chakra. For Aries, the 2nd chakra is a place of helping to dissolve and stabilize the psyche. So while you've been trying to do what you're doing in your career with Pluto in Capricorn, Neptune has been in Pisces, and you've been developing on your emotional stability. And your emotional stability through Pisces, that relates to like truth, to Satya. And through the 12th house in particular, this would resonate with a need to let go of, or to purge yourself of emotional desires. Of course, Pisces is connected to Sagittarius as the 9th lord. And that's very relevant because we can see Jupiter rules the 9th and the 12th houses. So there is a connection to, typically Aries surrenders their emotions to whatever they're living for. This is Sagittarius is what they're living for. It's their role in life, their job, the role that they play. And Pisces shows that the connection of Pisces to the 12th, Jupiter rules both the 9th and the 12th. So Aries tends to surrender to whatever they're doing in their career. Neptune being in the 12th has probably put a drag on the amount of devotion that you have been having regarding whatever it's the emotional level of whatever you've devoted yourself to. If you have a family, Neptune in Pisces has probably been deeply emotional in relation to trying to find a balance between being an active father or mother figure, or providing guidance for your family, or living amongst friends, even trying to help your friends out, trying to help the people in your network and career out. This is all Jupiter and ruling the ninth stuff. And the emotional side of that. How much can you let go of? How much do you need to let go of? This has been tested with Neptune and Pisces. Now that Neptune is in Aries, there's going to become a point where you're letting go of the emotional devotion that you've experienced is now coming into a purging phase of Neptune in Aries. It's the third chakra at the first house. So you're going to be having tests of integrity and authenticity of heart related to your identity. You're going to be tested in bending your authentic self in order to get along with others while still remaining your essential self, still keeping your identity. So, of course, Neptune is going to deal with the axis of Aries and Libra while it's in Aries. So this is an interesting thing because while Pluto is going to be subordinate to its network, Neptune is also going to be carving out individual personality for you. And the desire of Neptune at Aries is going to be a devotional desire to keep your individuality while you're still fighting to craft an identity in some network, some collective organization with Pluto in Aquarius, right? So now we see that Pluto has entered Aquarius for you. Any planets or points that are in there are going to have to dealt with in this way through Pluto and Aquarius. The challenge of Pluto and Aquarius brings deep soul resolution, transformation, and working out these issues with personal sovereignty, individuality, and freedom. This is the natural 11th house for Aries, so everything is kind of doubled for Aries. Pluto in Aquarius means this sort of issue of personal sovereignty for everybody, but for Aries in particular, because it's also the 11th house, this is doubly so. So you'll be experiencing feelings of domination because with Aquarius, we need to be appropriately subordinate before we can be a channel for our own individual power and influence in a network, an organization, or a professional field. We do have to cater to what is happening in the collective, what the needs of the collective are, through whatever our individual thing is. So if you have good planets in Aquarius, they'll engage you to be subordinate to a company or an organization or a family or a cause that is meaningful to you. If they're damaged, if you have damaged things happening, if you have a damaged Saturn, then you might find that whatever you are involving yourself with will feel like it's crushing your individuality and it's obstructing the realization of your most desired future goals. Pluto it's going to be a survival opportunism thing for everybody, but particularly for Aries, working through the 11th house. The opportunities, it's again, everything's doubled for Aries. That's just how Aries is with everything, because the natural 11th house is also the natural 11th sign. So it's like really a fork in the road in terms of if there's good things happening in Aquarius, and if there's delight happening in Aquarius, if planets that are friends are together in Aquarius, there's going to be delight through Pluto is going to magnify whatever it touches. So there will be much of this positive networking where what you're devoting yourself to will be working for what your future goals are. You're going to devote yourself to something that's going to bring you further in your career. Pluto in 11th can be very positive for Aries that has a good Saturn situation. If it's negative, then whatever you are involving with yourself with in the way the world changes through Pluto and Aquarius, the infrastructure of the world financially, economically, those changes in the world are probably going to obstruct your greater goals, right? So Saturn, for Aries, Saturn rules the 10th and 11th houses. So this is kind of the issue, what you've been dealing with while Pluto has been going through your root chakra. It's career and the network connections that you make through that career. Now, if you have any So if you have any difficult things happening in Aquarius, it's all going to depend really on the planets that are there. And I'm going to say this for every rising sign. Venus has Saturn for a friend. So if you have Venus in Aquarius, it can possibly gain. Venus is delighted in Aquarius, so it could get some gains. And if well placed, it'll be involved with your attainments of career goals related to marriage and your erotic psyche, and your finances. That's Venus and being there. Now, the Moon, Jupiter, Mars, or Mercury in Aquarius, these planets are neutral to Saturn, and other factors will determine their effects. You know, because bad things can happen. If you've got Mars conjunct Mercury, for example, Mercury is going to damage that Mars because Mercury is an enemy of Mars. That's classic Vedic stuff, you know, but if you have difficult planets here, you know, Mars by itself isn't going to do that bad. Jupiter by itself isn't going to do anything that crazy. Furthermore, if any of these planets are your Atmakaraka or, you know, specifically the Atmakaraka, there will be much importance with Pluto being in Aquarius. Now, the one planet that's kind of crazy is the Sun being in Aquarius. The Sun has Saturn for an enemy. So the Sun in Aquarius and the Sun in Capricorn always has a bit of difficulty. If you have the Sun in Capricorn, Pluto in Aquarius will be a relief, because now Pluto is getting away from amplifying the damaged Sun in Capricorn. If the Sun is in Aquarius, Pluto in Aquarius could bring some difficulty. Now, it's going to be a necessary period because, again, like I always say, when something like Pluto is moving through the zodiac, it's not this Death Star that comes and wants to cause pain just for its own sake. Pluto in Aquarius is whatever it touches is amplifying things because we haven't dealt with it for a long time. Like, why do we go to the bathroom? It's not because Saturn is above us at noon. It's because we haven't gone to the bathroom in this many hours. The soul has not gone through Pluto in Aquarius for 250 years, whatever that means in reincarnation language. So the Pluto touching the Sun is going to be a necessary purgation period. Pluto touching anything having difficulty will bring this out. But again, if the Sun can still be well placed in Aquarius. If it has aspects from its friends, if it has good, strong digbala. But there will be a test and a struggle related to the 5th house, because Leo is in the 5th house. And so for Aries, the Sun in Aquarius is going to be testing your individual life path through, again, some kind of collective organization. And you will still have a desire to keep that Sun, especially if it's strong. There'll be a great spiritual purging going on there. Now, we can see that Saturn will be coming through your 12th house of Pisces with Neptune, and this around 2023, 2026. There will bring some confusing loss to the themes we've discussed with Pluto and Aquarius, and it'll be through waste, essentially, the 12th house. This will be a difficult period at first. Be very careful at this time for Aquarius. Don't, this is kind of idiot yoga in a certain parlance where you can go and invest a bunch of money into something that will ultimately end up being a waste. There will be a desire to gain some kind of spirituality and even to experience some kind of something through the 2nd chakra, the Svadhisthana chakra of Pisces. And if you don't have a good Jupiter, if you don't have something to dedicate yourself to, a lot of your 12th house energy will be pissed away in this period, and it will bring guilt, the regret that we often hear about the Svadhisthana chakra. So be careful in that period not to waste time doing anything that's not essential to your emotional desire, because there'll be a nebulous emotionality where you can just go and make heartfelt connections with strangers that you're throwing your pearls before swine. There will be a impulse to do that, but you want to keep your emotional resources for when 2026 to 2028 hits. Because this is when Saturn is going to be in your first house. It's going to be with Neptune, and it's going to be channeling the difficulties of Pluto and Aquarius while Saturn is debilitated. The first house is going to get hit for you at this point, and there's going to be a need to develop your will in a way that is true for your needs. Again, Saturn resonates with the root chakra. So your ability to be in this organization that you get involved with and to build on your future goals is going to ultimately cause you to surrender and sacrifice some of your individuality. But Neptune here will force you to not let go of it completely. That's a tough push and pull between the individual willpower. You need to be subordinate in order to make Pluto and Aquarius in the 11th bring out its best effects. But that subordination has opportunities for you to become a leader in some kind of big company, especially for Aries. Aries wants to be leaders and to be people who get through the tough stuff. So you will want to be, you'll be tested in regards to your will while Saturn is moving through Aries, and it will be pretty difficult for everybody. And for you, it's your first house. There's a lot to be said here in terms of struggles there. But if you have a good Mars, this will bring that your Mars will be tested and purged, and it will ultimately come through with an endurance that it can kind of get through anything. It'll flush out the fatty liver, but take care of your health at this time because it's your first house, it's your body, right? Throughout this period, you should mostly be just taking care of your body, doing whatever Pluto is whipping you to do, which it might be kind of doing. Sacrifice it, kiss it, give it up to the divine, and move through it. And by the time Saturn comes to Taurus in April of 2028, you'll have gotten through the heaviest of it. You'll have gotten through this Saturn, Neptune, Aries pressure urgency. That's a better time. The world especially will all have gone through this. It'll be on weak knees. So people like Aries, this is a good time for you to use this period to develop your second house and to develop on entrepreneurial ventures that can take you farther down the road. When Saturn is with Uranus and the South Node in Gemini in 2030, this will be a period that'll again shake loose whatever you've built. It'll be a period of exploring and communicating all the networking opportunities that you've gained through Pluto and Aquarius. This will be a good opportunity for you to explore and to get these gains while also combining it all with your ninth house desire to live a role that's meaningful to you. Once Pluto is in Aquarius with the South Node, and Saturn is with Leo in the North Node. Saturn's with the North Node in Leo. This will be a period where the fifth house is finally being forced to jumpstart itself and to stay grounded in your own individual needs, your own individual kingdom, while Pluto is purifying and purging and letting go of what you've built in this individual collective structure. Mind you, Pluto's going to stay in Aquarius for longer. So this is a period of intense refraction back into the individual needs of the spirit. And that is what is happening for Aries Rising. I hope everybody dug that. Let's see. I think that was about 20 minutes. So that's not too bad. I was trying to keep each of these within 15 to 20 minutes. So we're going to see how well I can keep to that sort of general pattern, because I will be here forever if I don't keep it all in. I hope you guys enjoyed that. That was Pluto and Aquarius for Aries Rising. I'm Dustin Cormier. Stay tuned because I'm going to keep doing stuff like this in the future. Let me know in the comments what you thought. And feel free to ask me any more questions or give me different ideas for videos that I can do in the future. Thanks for watching. We're still here though. We're live, folks. I just wanted to say that for everybody watching Aries Rising. Now we're going into Taurus Rising. So don't leave yet. So as you guys can see, this is going to be a long video. Thank you for everybody watching and hanging out. Ask me questions along the way. We're looking like we're going to be about 20 minutes in each sign. Something like that. So 20, 40, 60, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. Probably going to be about 4 hours. I expected it to go like this. I got Mars and Scorpio, folks. We're going to get through this. But I enjoy doing this stuff with you guys, so let's move on to the next. Next up, we have Taurus Rising. Now for Taurus, you have had Pluto in Capricorn in your 9th house. And Pluto in Capricorn in the 9th house. How this went for you is going to depend on all of the things going on in Capricorn. So Taurus Rising now is just getting started. Everybody, again, feel free to leave me any comments. This is now, I'm trying to make like something. I need one of those little click things, action, to show the audience that we have now switched on to the next topic. We are on Taurus Rising now, and this is Pluto and Aquarius for all who have Taurus Rising. It's going to try to aim to be about 20 minutes. Let's see if we can keep within that. While Pluto is in Capricorn in the last, about 18 years, it started around 2008 that Pluto was in Capricorn, and now Pluto is going to be coming into Aquarius soon in your 10th house. Now, how it went in your 9th house is ultimately going to be what it means and how it came through depends on the planets and the cusp points that are in the 9th house. I'm a tropical Vedic astrologer. I abide by the whole sign system, but the whole sign system is the embodiment of the signs. The signs are like the soil, but the house cusps are like the actual points of the individual inside their field. So you could have the 8th house here, and the 8th house would have been tested the whole time Pluto is in Capricorn. The Vedic people think of cusps as kind of like planets. If you have the 8th cusp here, then it's being channeled through the dispositor, Saturn. Saturn ruling Capricorn. So any points and any planets in Capricorn are being funneled through Saturn, the dispositor. This is how the Vedic people tend to think. So how this went depends on the situation here. If you have a planet like Mars exalted in Capricorn in the 9th house, that's a great place for Taurus Rising. But Mars would be exalted at that point, and Pluto would expand and amplify the exaltation of Mars in the sign of Capricorn. This is how we got to think of this kind of stuff, And whatever Mars would rule for Taurus, that would be the 12th house as well as the 7th house. The 12th and the 7th would be amplified. Themes of surrendering, 12th, in marriage, in business, the 7th, would be amplified through some kind of dharmic role that you want to play. That's Mars and Capricorn. So that's an example of how we think of Pluto amplifying things, because Pluto does not belong in the traditional chakras, as I often show these chakras here. Pluto and I'm going to bring up this one picture here just so that we have it locked and loaded. Pluto, like Neptune and Uranus, are not contained within the traditional chakras. Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Venus, Mercury, and then the Sun and Moon is the classical 7 planets. Neptune, Pluto, and Uranus are separate from these chakra lights. So Pluto doesn't do bad or worse in any sign. It's the dispositor that shows how Saturn's going to do. And it's all the planets correlated with that dispositor that are going to show how it's going to do. So for Taurus Rising and any planets that have been in Capricorn, I should say that Pluto has been in your lucky 9th house. And really, Pluto can be a tough strain anywhere. But for most Tauruses, the last few years, this whole period has been a positive, lucky consolidation, typically. Because anything that falls in the 9th house is considered auspicious. The 9th house is the most auspicious house. Usually shows karmic luck to have any planet there. Even when it's difficult, even when it's got a difficult placement. It's the funny thing how sometimes difficult karmas are, in the soul perspective, a limb that needs stretching, and we yogis love a limb that needs stretching because then we can stretch it. So, for example, if you have the sun in Capricorn, Pluto has amplified it, and the sun doesn't like being in Capricorn or Aquarius. The sun has Saturn for an enemy. So if you have the sun here, it's going to have difficulty, and you're going to experience, for Taurus's sake, you know, the sun rules the 4th house, so the sun being in the 9th would have pressure through Pluto related to emotions and home. And that would be amplified. So ultimately, though, because it's in the lucky 9th house, it will find some kind of spiritual alignment through all of those struggles. This is what I mean when things are in the 9th house. So it's been in your lucky 9th. It's not going to be quite as lucky in terms of the 10th house. But remember, Saturn rules the 9th house and the 10th house for Taurus. And we have to consider that Venus, which Taurus rules, Taurus, Venus has Saturn for a friend. So Pluto, that's naturally, it's funny, astrology tells us this wisdom, you know. Taurus is ruled by Venus, and it has Capricorn in the 9th house, ruled by Saturn. The fact that Saturn is a friend to Venus, this is part of the wisdom that's coming through there. So Pluto in Capricorn has probably been an enjoyable time for Taurus Rising. And while it's in Aquarius, that's not such a bad thing for Taurus Rising either. You know, the themes of Venus as an earthy planet correlate well with the root chakra. And as we know, Pluto, by visiting Capricorn and Aquarius, is hanging out in the root chakra area. Pluto is cleaning out the gunk drawers of the root chakra by being in Capricorn and Aquarius. So Venus doesn't do so bad in Capricorn. The self-effort of your root chakra has been tested through the 9th house since 2008, while Pluto was in Capricorn. You've been subordinate in your role in life and marriage, the 9th house. And you've learned authenticity in that role, personal, spiritual, soul authenticity. Now you're embodying that authenticity in your career. This is the 10th house of Aquarius. And so you'll be dealing with taking the wisdom of what you've been subordinate to, probably been subordinate to the feeling of family, of being a good husband or wife, or of being a part of some organization, helping something, and eventually becoming a teacher through being subordinate. That's really the Pluto in the 9th is very descriptive of this. Pluto transiting the 9th in particular. This whole period, you've been subordinate to some kind of guru, some kind of teacher who's pushing you. You probably even met some lucky guru-like figures in your life through this period, especially if you've got positive placement of planets there and a positive Saturn in particular. Now this is probably a period where you are taking whatever you've learned from this mentor figure and translating it into practical career prerogatives that will bring you further in your life ultimately. So now Neptune has been in Pisces, and we can see that Neptune, while Neptune has been in Pisces, we know that Saturn is going to be coming to Pisces, and we're going to talk about that soon. But while Neptune has been in Pisces, this has been a period, I guess I got to put that there. Neptune in Pisces has been a long period of everybody's Svadhisthana chakra. That's Pisces. It's the 2nd chakra. Pisces and Sagittarius share the rulership of Jupiter at this chakra. So you've probably been experiencing since about 2012, that's around the time Neptune came into Pisces, Taurus has been experiencing Neptune in the 11th, while Pluto's been in the 9th. So Neptune has probably been experiencing an emotional, for Taurus, Pisces, the Svadhisthana chakra, rules the 11th house. So part of the network that Taurus likes to be in, part of its networking power is its friends and the people that it feels cool and emotionally enjoyable with. Neptune in Pisces has tested your emotional chakra to remain juicy, to remain friendly while you've been working within some kind of organization, some kind of, the ego is always tested wherever Neptune is. And while you've had Neptune in the 11th house, your ego has been tested in this way relating to 11th house matters. I'm going to try to use another slide because I think I have some slides that are going to be a little bit more clear here. So while Neptune has been in Pisces, you've been experiencing the Svadhisthana chakra pressure to realign your emotional desires of your friends and your networks. And this has probably led to, the 11th house is a tough place because it's an egoic place. Tauruses have a lot to learn about cosmic transcendental connection because Taurus is the second sign. It's ruled by earthy Venus, and it's youthful in terms of the wisdom of the soul. Taurus people tend to grip things on earth because emotions are they're part of their reality. It's the fixed side, the earthy side of Venus. And Venus, Libra is more of coming from the heart and social things, but Taurus is the emotional aspect of things related to personal connections. There's divine love, and then there's personal love. And Neptune is an arbiter of divine love. So while you've been tested while Neptune was in Pisces, Pisces is still a personal love and divine love combined. The personal love comes from the fact that Pisces rules the second chakra. Again, right? That's part of the rootedness in ourselves. So Taurus has been learning to keep its own personal emotional ties while surrendering some of it to groups larger than themselves. And you've probably been committing to loving the people inside your work and your organizations and surrendering some of the personal love that you'd prefer to give to family and friends and people close to you. You've had to surrender some of that to the organizations that you're working within. And that can be a frustrating thing for Taurus, but this is just part of the lessons that Neptune brings. And if it was well placed, if you've got a good Jupiter, then this is connected positively to the 8th house. Jupiter ruling Pisces and Sagittarius, it rules the 11th house and the 8th house. These are both unstable houses, and it's a tough place for Taurus, the 11th and 8th house. But ultimately, every rising sign has difficult shadow pockets. Everyone has an 11th house. Everyone has the unstable 8th house. They're tied together for Taurus, which is tricky. But if you have a good Jupiter, and if you have aspects to Jupiter that are positive, then you will be filling up this egoic place where you will be allowed to, through Neptune here, you've probably been guided to do well in your career you've probably been guided to do well in your career and to gain opportunity, 8th house, through the things you've done in your career all that time. So this is just a general thing of Neptune coming up from the second chakra, and it's going to be coming up to the third chakra of Aries. Of course, the third chakra is Aries, as we can see here, right? So for Taurus, this is the 12th house. It's a challenge to be detached from your ego regarding loss, embarrassment, and failure to be authentic. You're going to be refining which goals are worth fighting for and which should be given up to the divine through the 12th house. Because this is very much Taurus has Aries in its natural 12th house typically. So while Neptune is here, you have to be, Neptune's in the 3rd chakra, the solar plexus chakra in Aries. And everybody has to be able, the tricky thing about spirituality is that people think that you're not allowed to be an individual, to have your own egoic needs, to fight for what you need. And with Neptune and Aries, we can see that it's in the 3rd chakra. It's the solar plexus chakra. We all do need to fight for what we need. But how can you fight? You know, it's like they say, the pen is stronger than the sword. How can Taurus fight? By dedicating itself to something that's important to Taurus. Usually it's going to be through marriage, through intimacy, because Taurus, you'll see the 12th is related to the 7th. Scorpio rules the 7th house for Taurus. So Scorpio rules Mars rules Scorpio, the 7th house, and Aries, the 12th house. While Neptune is in Aries, there's going to be a pressure for Taurus to surrender to something that will emotionally cleanse the Taurus's ego, where it wants to be egoic, it wants to be number one. And even through your marriage partner, you can find either a marriage partner or some kind of intimate partner. You will find a way to retain your individuality for your own spiritual sake, for fighting for your own will. And you'll do it through your partner. And this can bring marriage confrontations. But if you communicate about it with your partner in this period, ultimately what's going to happen is that because it's in the 12th, not in the 7th, if Neptune was in Scorpio, it would be more about dealing fairly in marriage. While Neptune is in Aries, you need to learn to hold on to your personal truth and to fight for when you need to fight, but also pick your battles and learn when keeping, yourself dignified, fighting with the pen rather than the sword, and letting go of the times when you want to keep your will, you want to keep your dignity, but you will be forced to not. You will always have the choice. You can always fight. But fighting while Neptune is in Aries in your 12th house will bring more loss than transcendental love will. So keep that in mind. So, as we move along, that was the little Neptune bit. We can see now we've been talking about just the general themes of Pluto in Aquarius and Neptune in Pisces. Now, Pluto enters Aquarius in 2024. 2023, Pluto is still going to be really kind of on the cusp of Aquarius around this time. It's going to be dancing on the cusp of Capricorn and Aquarius. Something important to say is that even while Pluto is in Capricorn, Pluto again is using Saturn for its dispositor. And this is what I've been saying in these videos. Saturn, as the dispositor, is channeling what's happening with Pluto in Aquarius. So wherever Saturn is transiting is going to show, it's going to convey something to the narrative of what Pluto is doing. Now, whatever has been happening for you with Neptune and Pisces is going to be deeply locked in when Saturn comes into Pisces and conjuncts Neptune. And at this period, since it's the 11th house, Saturn has just gone past your 10th house in Aquarius. It's 2022 right now. It's still doing what it's doing in Aquarius for you. Really, Saturn coming from the 9th to the 10th to the 11th is a pinnacle peak of career opportunity for you. So Taurus has been experiencing Saturn coming through the top of its chart. Now it's coming into the 11th, and it's starting to move towards the left side, the rising side, which is the self. We've got the self, the home, the others in business, and then the career and what you do. And what you've been doing in your career is now you've probably been subordinate, again, especially providing through your role of your family and whatever you are in your individuality. You've been using that to craft the 9th house. Pluto's now in the 10th, and while Saturn is coming through the 11th, you're going to be channeling your skills that you're learning in the 10th, and they're going to be challenged and transformed through connections you have in the 11th, through the emotional connections you've made, through friends, through opportunities in business that you've manifested through the enjoyment of your personality. Saturn is going to constrict these and put pressure on them that could be positive. But ultimately, this is going to be a difficult period for everybody. If your Jupiter's well placed, and if you have a good emotional reality, it's the 2nd chakra, then this could bring, this is a pressure that could make diamonds in terms of the emotional connections that you do have. One thing that should be said for everybody is during this period of 2023 to 2026, be careful of what connections you make in career and networking that are emotionally based but are not ultimately practical to your future and your career. Pluto is going to be testing your ability to do what's best and be a leader in terms of yourself in your own career. Now, you have to be subordinate at some level. The tricky thing with Neptune and Saturn in Pisces in the 11th house is that there will be an egotistical desire to get to places almost for like, it's a status thing, the 11th house. The 11th house is considered an evil house in Vedic astrology. But even the evil houses can be conveyed as a positive inner light of the soul. It's a shadow that can be, every rising sign has these pockets. So the 11th house is a difficult spot. And when Saturn and Neptune are in this 11th house, you'll be tempted to do things for emotional feelings of social gain. But if you aren't looking at the end of things, if you don't have your eye on the prize, you'll be compelled to do something for emotional reasons that are not actually good for your gains and for your career and business in the future. This will be a time where everybody should be refraining from too much extrasensory, externalized input, refraining from that kind of thing, turning inward, and abiding by a bit of yogic consciousness, so that by the time Saturn and Neptune come into Aries in 2026, Saturn is going to be debilitated here. And there's going to be, you can essentially waste emotions on things in career that don't matter, and then your career is probably going to be changing a lot while Pluto's in Aquarius, especially when Saturn comes into Aries. The emotional things that you've built for practical career purposes will melt when Saturn and Neptune are together in Aries. And you might feel a waste and a loss, and it will make you feel frustrated at your solar plexus will. And at this point, you'll be trying to grasp for any emotional connection that you can because of the 12th house nature. Teresa's asking if the 11th house gets better with age. That is correct, Teresa. But ultimately, and this 11th house can even go well for anybody who is wise about using their emotional connections. I'm glad Teresa made this point, because the 11th does get better with age. And even regardless of age, if you have a well-placed Jupiter, if you have a strong emotional connections, you will skip a lot of wasted energy here. And by the time Saturn comes with Neptune and Aries, you'll know that you stuck to emotional things that were worth sticking to, and you didn't let the desire for fame and opportunity get in the way of what's deeply important to your ultimate desires, because Taurus ultimately desires to connect with the eternal soul inside of their loved ones. When Saturn is with Neptune and Aries, there will be a desire and a need to let go of a lot in terms of what you've been building in career and emotional connections. Be careful at this period from 2026 to 2028 of what you invest in emotionally again. ultimately, there's going to be a lot of emotional strain here, and it's going to be related to finances as well. Don't go crazy with financially, especially emotionally connecting with anything. Be very careful in particular for single people or people who have prospective marriage decisions to be made here. You've got to really make sure that you're not acting out of a financial drain because of what might be happening with Pluto at this time. There's going to be an economical drain on you that might make you feel like I need to get married with this person in order to connect my emotions because my emotions are going crazy right now. Because after Saturn comes into Taurus on April 2028, you're going to be dealing with your individuality and whatever you connected with here, likely through marriage, because again, Mars rules the 12th and the 7th. Try to be aware of the emotions that are happening in this period and consider that you might want to wait until Saturn comes into Taurus before connecting anything too deeply. Although, again, you got to go by feel on that because, I mean, really, if you're connecting with someone under this pressure and you tell them that I kind of want to wait until the dust settles with a few things and they say, no, I'm not going to connect with you unless you connect with me right now in this moment, they are probably acting on this as well. And you might find emotional waste with the connections that you make at this point if you abide in a state of vulnerability. This is why I'm saying to keep your heart close, restrain your emotions, stay centered in the period of 2023, really, but mostly 2026 to 2028. Then in 2028, there will be a relief, although Saturn will be in your first house at this point. This is going to be a tough thing for Taurus Rising, ultimately, but there is much positive self-experience to be gained here. But Saturn is always difficult in the first house for everybody. So while Saturn coming into Taurus will be a relief for everyone, you're still going to kind of be a little bit under fire, at least with Saturn coming through your first house. But if you have a well-placed Venus, it will ultimately just be satisfying to let go of that which is not truly you during this period. Saturn's going to be with Uranus in the south node, in Gemini in the second house. It's going to be trying what's happening in your career. At this point, you will have opportunities to develop on your own personal resources, but there will be a desire to connect through marriage here at this point. Really, once Saturn is into Taurus and even Saturn into this area, these are kind of really better times for you to be doing marriage-y types of things. You'll be wanting to connect with things in proper ways through the 8th house, through marriage, through investments. And you'll be letting go at some level of your own personal investments. You'll be letting, Saturn is going to be touching the south node here with Uranus. We're all going to be just wanting to get some kind of quick get-rich-quick scheme going on. And there you have an opportunity to here, but you should be discerning about the nature of the opportunity, the playfulness of it. Be playful in this period. But because of the south node being with Saturn here, it's almost as if you won't be desiring to. You'll be desiring more to connect with the opportunity of other business partners. You should be aware this period that this is a good time for you to develop your own resources, despite feeling like that's not what you want to do. Because it's going to be with Uranus, there's going to be great promise for really blending this axis, working with other people, but also developing your own resources. Now in 2035, this is going to be the period where we're all going to be desiring to let go of what we've been building with Pluto and Aquarius. Saturn is going to be with the North Node in Leo in your 4th house. And this is a period where you will be deeply desiring to let go of the career building that you've been doing in order to start finally coming back to what Taurus is really all about, right? Taurus is this emotional sign. It has the sun, its individual soul, is in the 4th house. Taurus is really more all about, what it does in its career is just like the sticks that it brings to the central fire of its life, which is actually the 4th house. Taurus really desires to have a decent family, to have connections, but you are going to need to merge all the opportunities that you've built for the collective through the difficulties of the collective, you're going to need to merge those opportunities with firmness in your family. Your family has to accept that your family and friends and loved ones all have to accept that you have to surrender some time in your career. And it's the time you sacrifice in your career that will make your personal experience of life that much more subjectively meaningful and purposeful. That will be an important time for all of us, and it should be a relief for Taurus because they love that fourth house consciousness. So everybody, that was Taurus Rising. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Let me know in the comments. Let me know what you thought. And thank you for everybody for hanging out and watching me do my thing. Now, my friend Judy has asked, what is the most comprehensive book I can buy to learn all about aspects of astrology? That one's a tough one for me, but I would say my favorite when it comes to aspects is Astrology, A Cosmic Science by Isabella M. Hickey. If you want to know about Vedic aspects, you'll have to find a Vedic astrology book. The one that I always recommend, because I'm a tropical Vedic astrologer, I combine Western with Vedic astrology. My favorite is Light on Life. It's by Robert Svoboda and Hart DeFal. That's the one that I recommend. Thank you. Michael Gregory's noticing my sweet little hat. Now, everybody, I'm just going to go to the bathroom for a moment. When we come back, we're going to talk about Gemini Rising. Okay? Thanks for hanging out, folks, and we'll be back in just a minute. The fixed planets for Gemini Rising. I wonder if you mean the fixed signs, Sarah, when you're asking about the fixed planets. Not entirely sure. I'm always trying to check out the comments here, and I'm always going to try to keep it in line with what is useful to our conversation, because we got a lot to go through today. And I'm already spending a lot of time on these. So we're going to keep rocking and rolling here, folks. This is How to Rock Astrology. Welcome. I'm Dustin Cormier. We've talked all about Aries Rising and Taurus Rising for Pluto and Aquarius. Now we're going to talk about Gemini Rising. So, Sarah, you're saying you have Leo, Taurus, Aquarius, and Scorpio placements, so that's a square going on. I would generally just look at what, there's lots of things you can look up on Google to find Pluto squaring this planet. I would just consider it for, if you're a Gemini rising, what does each of those planets mean to the sign? There's a lot to go, there'd be a lot to see there. Now, to talk about how each planet is going to be affected by a square like that, that's a very intricate things that I can't get through in this video. But, feel free to ask me again at another point, and maybe we can get these individual aspects. But for now, we're just going to talk generally about Pluto in Aquarius and Neptune in Aries. And we are talking about Gemini Rising. My friend Steven the Jupiterian is got me doing this click so I can look back in the video and see when that happened. So thank you, Steven the Jupiterian. And thank you, everybody else, for hanging out and watching with me. We're live here, folks. Feel free to ask questions, leave comments. We'll all rock and roll and speak to them as best we can, as fits the conversation. So, next up is Gemini Rising. Gemini Rising is going to be having an important period, and Geminis are the one people who are going to probably be having the most luck in terms of what Pluto is doing in the sign of Aquarius, because Aquarius is the 9th house for Gemini. There's a lot of positive things to be said for Pluto moving through the 9th house. There are certainly positive things to look forward to. And it's going to be very nice because Pluto in Aquarius is going to be a big change in the world. Now, Pluto going through the 9th is ultimately positively lucky. But sometimes spiritual luck often looks like material discomfort in the material and emotional realm. So just because you've got Pluto coming through the 9th, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have amazing, amazing, amazing luck. But it's luckier position than Pluto in any other position, at least by house auspiciousness. So for Gemini Rising, Pluto has been in Capricorn in your 8th house since 2008, while Neptune has been in Pisces. And Pisces is your 10th house. So how this went for you, Gemini, how this has gone for you is ultimately depends on their dispositors. That's Saturn for Capricorn and Jupiter for Pisces. So really the first thing to be said is that any planets or points in these signs are going to be affected by these outer planets. Because as I often say, we know that the outer planets are not connected to the classical chakra scheme, right? Saturn rules the root chakra. Jupiter is the 2nd chakra. Mars rules the solar plexus. Venus rules the heart chakra. And then there's Mercury and the sun and the moon with Cancer and Leo. The better way to put it would be somewhat like this, right? So we've got Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Venus, Mercury, and then the moon and the sun at the 6th chakra. So the outer planets don't typically rule. They're outside of this chakra schema. They're not one of the colored rays of light. They are this colorless amplifying lens. So wherever they fall in by transit is not how it's going to go ultimately depends on the planets that are in here, whether there's any positive things happening to planets in here, or the cusps that are falling in these signs as well. And the dispositors, how Saturn is doing is important to Pluto in Capricorn and Aquarius, and how Jupiter is doing is ultimately important to how Neptune and Pisces went for you. So for Gemini Rising, there has been Pluto in the 8th house. Pluto is a planet of subordination. There's a need to deal with being second banana in some regard. There's a need to deal with being under some thumb of some sort. In this case for you, you have been subordinate to opportunities. You've probably been moving through the feeling of desiring for, there's probably a sexual opening that could have happened for you while Pluto's been going through Capricorn, because sexuality relates with the 8th house. It's very possible that a lot of Gemini risings, while Pluto was in Capricorn, have had a desire to connect with power and prestige and money by connecting with somebody else who's powerful and who has money and prestige in this way. And they have probably felt a need to connect with, there's probably a lot of Gemini risings that have jumped on the OnlyFans train and, these kinds of things. Or even this is like sugar baby consciousness that has happened for Gemini. Now, you can take that however you like, but ultimately, how this went, again, depends on Saturn. And this has led to a desire, while now that Pluto is in the 9th house, you've felt that the power or the money or the people you've connected with while Pluto is in the 8th house, it could be even groups of investors that you've invested things with, whatever you gained during that period, you've now decided that you want to take the wheat from the chaff in terms of your role in life and family, in a spiritual role that means more than just power and money and prestige for its own sake, and even comfort. The 8th house is like, we want to get married to someone with lots of positive things that they can invest with us so that our lives can be comfortable. Now that Pluto is coming into Aquarius, there is a desire to tap into the comfort, the meaning and the purpose of the connections that you've made. You've been subordinate at some level to the opportunities for wealth and connection available while Pluto is in the 8th. Now you're taking the wheat from the chaff in terms of your role in life and family. Now, Neptune has been in Pisces, and this is the 2nd chakra for all of us, and it's now moving up to Aries. While it was in Pisces, this is your 10th house, Gemini. So Gemini tends to have connections between marriage and their career because Jupiter rules Sagittarius and Pisces. Pisces is the receptive side of the 2nd chakra. So usually with regard to Pisces, there's a desire to do things. Gemini has a desire in their career to do things that are ultimately meaningful to them spiritually. They connect. It's funny how this works. Sagittarius is coming from Spirit all the way down to Capricorn. The marriage point for Geminis, that's Sagittarius, they connect in marriage, the 7th house, in a way that is conducive to them building a kingdom. Leo is building a materially manifested kingdom. Now, Pisces is the receptive side of that, and Pisces is on the side that's going from Aquarius to Pisces to Aries all the way up to Cancer. This is material being birthing spirit. So for Pisces, there's a desire in terms of career to really have some kind of meaningful career activity or life activity. What they do in their career, they want to connect it to their individual subjective desires and their goals and to ultimately serve something greater than themselves. Gemini really does have this, but by serving something greater than themselves, they serve their own emotional, spiritual nature. It's a personal nature. Gemini wants to get something personal and emotionally satisfying out of their career. While Neptune has been here, you've probably been experiencing the need for that emotional, subjective part of life, while also building on a career that is actually powerful. And, Gemini likes to have something that is useful, skillful, and enjoyable. And the test with Neptune and Pisces is probably related to the enjoyableness of your career could overstep its actual practicality, or the other way around. The practicality of your career could overstep the enjoyableness of it. Now that Neptune is coming into the 11th house, whatever career things that you've done in the 10th house, you have Neptune coming up to the 3rd chakra, Aries. See, this is the solar plexus chakra. So now you're going to be experiencing an authenticity, tests of your authenticity of heart in terms of merging with natural, healthy desires and attainments of the ego in an honest and enduring way. Because Neptune is in the 11th house now in Aries, the 11th house is considered an evil house in Vedic astrology. So I'm just going to check what my friend Teresa is saying, because you're asking, Teresa, perhaps you're oversimplifying this, but you're surprised Gemini being ruled by Mercury is associated with sex. Teresa, the connection I'm making to sex was because Pluto was going through the 8th house for Gemini Rising. This is this sugar baby type of consciousness as a possibility that I mentioned. This could even be metaphorical in the sense. You don't necessarily, not every Gemini is being the sexual sugar baby thing, but the energy metaphor for that relates with Pluto going through that dirty, kinky 8th house in order to get somewhere that's more meaningful and purposeful to the Gemini. A lot of times Gemini will explore in the playful way that Gemini does, that we love them for. They'll explore the dirt in order to get something higher than the dirty experiences that they've experienced. Not everyone is going to be taking that in a terrible way. If you have a well-placed Saturn, then you are allowed to get your hands dirty in terms of positive things. You know, you can get your hands dirty in real estate, or, you know, in investing. In investing money, you'll play around with things that don't work, so that eventually, now that Pluto's in the 9th, you're going to learn what does work. So, to continue back on Neptune being in Aries in the 11th, now that Neptune is in your solar plexus chakra, you're going to be having tests of will, and you're going to be tested in having an honest and earnest career. And it's really about the desire for the fruits of your results of your action. Remember, in the Bhagavad Gita, what we say is we are not entitled to the fruits of our action. We are only entitled to our actions. So there's a mystical resonance with that. When any planet is moving through the 11th, it's manifesting what is necessary, is the 11th house gains and attainments. While Neptune is here, there's going to be a desire and a funny thing that's going to occur, especially for you, Gemini. There's going to be a funny moral, ethical quandary happening, because Pluto in the 9th is going to desire to have meaning, Sagittarian ethics, as well as Aquarian ethics, while Neptune is in Aries. What's going to be happening is that essentially you are going to want to have a role in life that's meaningful to you, but Neptune through Aries is going to be operating through the willful desire to have opportunities that will get you gains down the road in the long run. If you are centered, if you are emotionally centered, and if you have a strong grip on Mars in your chart, and if you have a good Saturn, you will not ultimately let go of the role that you have in life for the sake of some opportunity, some fruit, some result that seems too delicious to be true, and will launch you into something that you ultimately won't feel satisfied about. If you don't have a good Mars, Mars is actually a tricky planet for Gemini. We'll note that Mars is not an enemy to Mercury, but Mercury is an enemy to Mars. Mercury is on the side of the air and earth signs. Mars is on the side of the fire and water signs. The fire and water and the air and earth are divided in a way in old Vedic astrology reckoning. So this is part of what this is saying by any planet transiting the 11th house is difficult, especially an outer planet. And while Neptune is in Aries, it's going to resonate with Mars's rulership of the 6th house and the 11th house. So this is a resonance with difficulty in terms of debts and in terms of getting through debt through some kind of career opportunity. And you're going to be challenged to do it in an earnest way that you feel ultimately good about down the line while still making money off of it. You're allowed to have an, ego is a 4-letter word in spirituality. You're allowed to have gains. You're allowed to have fruits. But make sure that your action, especially while Pluto's in the 9th, make sure your action is coming from a place of true desire to do good for yourself and for your soul. As long as you stick to that, and Pluto through the 9th will teach you that, what it is that is your real, true spiritual goal in this life. And you will sublimate that into whatever fruits you seek to gain while Neptune is in Aries. So I hope that was a little bit more clarifying. Ultimately, the desire for the fruits of your action will sometimes threaten your spiritual authenticity in this process as this comes along. So keep your mind on what's happening, and you should get through it okay. Keep yourself grounded in your heart. This is going to be an important thing for Gemini Rising. Now, we see that when Pluto is in Aquarius, it's going to be doing its thing, and it's going to be having Saturn for its dispositor. Saturn is going to conjunct Neptune in Pisces in the 10th house during its stay in Pisces. And this is 2023 to 2026. So it's going to be channeling Pluto in Capricorn and Aquarius. It's going to be kind of on the cusp here. So while Saturn is with Neptune in Pisces, there's going to be a constriction of Saturn as the dispositor for Pluto here in the 9th. There's going to be a wavy sort of feeling like your career is really a spot that's going to show difficulty and give difficulty to what Pluto is trying to do in the 9th house. Your career is going to be the stage for the role that you're trying to craft for yourself. And while Pluto's in Aquarius, the world is going to go through some economical turmoil, especially at the early parts of it. So at this point, your career, you could have emotional desires to connect to something in career that isn't ultimately serving you. You have to sacrifice your enjoyment of what you're doing in your career for a little while in order to get the most out of this transit. And at the same time, don't be a slave to your career. There's a balance that needs to be found. Find your authenticity through finding a balance between enjoyment and simple desire to work well and work hard. Because when Saturn is with Neptune, there's going to be a confusion and an emotional compulsion here at this time. If you have a good Jupiter, this is ultimately going to be very well serving. You might even use your partner, your marriage partner, to grip your emotions in a solid, simple way that's not too excessive, so that you can continue what you're gaining in your career at this time and connect with your marriage partner in this way, or whatever partners you have. It's a good thing to have some kind of solid emotional connections so that you can enjoy what you're doing in your career and not get too wrapped up in the feeling that I need to enjoy what's in my career. Enjoy connections of intimacy with others so that you don't get emotionally needy and sublimate that into a career that you think will give you emotional pacification. Emotional pacification in your career is important, but in the extreme, this moment will lead you to things that are not meaningful for the 9th house. This is the confusion of Saturn with Neptune. It will be even more difficult when Saturn is with Neptune in Aries and it's debilitated. This will happen through the 11th house. There will be desires to be attached to some kind of organization, some kind of wheel, something that's happening that's outside of you. And really at this point, it's good karma to just do things for an Aquarian ways that relate to your will. Being philanthropic, doing things for the world, helping people at this time will be something that you're somehow forced or compelled to do because Saturn is here with Neptune. And you'll desire not to. You will have a desire to go selfishly towards something that will give you gains and help you solidify your future. But part of how you are going to need to let go of the egotism of this is to be satisfied doing things with other people and then say, that's enough. I've gone as far as I need to in this moment. Because there's going to be a pressure on you to climb some kind of ladder, and this is on shaky ground, that all of our knees are going to be shaky. There's going to be an emotional compulsion to be willfully a leader in some kind of organization, which will feel emotionally compelled to you to keep your masculinity or your femininity or your dignity. It's going to be a test of dignity here. And your connection to some deeper purpose, which will usually be through family or through friends or a network of true meaningful friends. As an air sign, this is important to Gemini. Pluto being in the trine of Gemini and Aquarius in the 9th. You're going to want to stick to meaningful connections that are emotionally, subjectively meaningful, so that you don't get lost in some kind of career that is going to be egotistically designed. You're going to want to, there's going to be a compulsion to get in some career or get some attainment that you can rub in everybody's face. So look at this, Gemini, I'm finally somebody. And if it comes from that place, it will lead you astray. Be careful of this in this period from 2023 up to about 2028. Then when Saturn is in Taurus, it's going to be in your 12th house. Saturn likes being in Taurus. So there will be positivity here for everybody in terms of Saturn and its sign. This will be a relief because Saturn will be out of the 11th house. But for you, this will still be a period of a little bit of difficulty because Saturn is experiencing loss in this place. At which point, there won't be as much pressure. The world is going to get back on its fucking, excuse me for swearing, back on its feet because it's going to be out of the debilitation of Aries. So Saturn here is going to be a little bit wasteful. But what happens in terms of this waste will ultimately be important to learning and understanding what parts of your role in life are meaningful to you. And you might even lose some aspects of your marriage that you hoped for, or your marriage, or you might, some people could become divorced from either their marriage partner or from some spiritual line of guruship that they thought was important. Saturn and Taurus here at this time will remind them of what is absolutely essential spiritually and everything else. Now, when Saturn is with Uranus in the South Node in Gemini from 2030 to 2032, this will be a period of great importance to your identity. And everything that's been happening up to this point, there's this kite happening between the trine of these three planets with Pluto and Aquarius, and Neptune being in Aries at this point is creating the base of a kite. And this is also going to be relevant to your 5th house, especially if your 5th house cusp in Libra is around the beginning of Libra, or, the first 10 degrees of Libra. At this point, Saturn is going to be going through your 1st house, but there's going to be great opportunities to build your identity through what's happening with Saturn, Uranus, in the South Node in Gemini here. This will be a shake-off of a lot of the difficulty that's happening while Saturn is in Pisces and Aries conjunct Neptune, and even in the 12th house. This will be a relief. This will be a time where you're letting go of the letting go. You've let go of a lot of junk. Now you're starting to define what Saturn is, your 9th lord and your 8th lord, the opportunistic aspect of Gemini. You're going to be defining for yourself what these gains and the opportunities really of since 2008. What all of this, your ability to research, your ability to be a seeker of things through research. This is a period where this is going to come through your identity, and you're ultimately going to be kind of letting go of it in order to come into marriage, because marriage is going to be very important here. But marriage is going to be something that you grasp for, or at least connecting in marriage and business and other partners. This kind of connection is going to be important because the North Node is where you're going to be wanting to go, and you're going to want to let go of the self. But Saturn is there. So it's this need to develop what's going on in yourself while still being open to opportunities. But ultimately, the opportunities that you find through other people are going to give you self-realization. It's like a wrestler can't be the best wrestler in the world if they only wrestle by themselves in their basement. You have to go and wrestle with others to know you're a good wrestler. In the same way, whatever you gain through partners or intimacy or other people, business partners, etc., will build on what's happening here. And ultimately, when Saturn comes to, this is the sign of Leo. I don't have the the actual sign of it, but when Saturn is with the North Node in Leo, this is when Pluto's dispositor, the dispositor for Aquarius being Saturn, Pluto's dispositor is going to be desiring to open up into the individuality of yourself. We will all have been experiencing big social flux and infrastructural change. We're all going to be building the well of collective needs, developing on these collective needs. And while that's been happening, that will have been happening for all that time. It will have been draining for all of us. And for you, Gemini, you're going to be exploring on what your individual opportunism, this is Gemini's 3rd house, and Gemini is the natural 3rd sign. It's interesting that Leo is the kingdom of every individual. And the soul kingdom for Gemini is the 3rd house. It's an interesting thing going on there. And while Saturn and the North Node are there, there's going to be a desire to learn the limits of how you can express and experience all that you can with regard to your individual kingdom and how your individual kingdom can be built on what the collective has been transforming while Pluto has been in Aquarius. The South Node is with Pluto in Aquarius at this point in 2035. You're going to be letting go for a moment on, ultimately you can't fully let it go. You can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's the common phrase for Rahu and Ketu, Ketu being the South Node. While Ketu is here, you're going to be wanting to let go of this role that you have for others in society and just build on your own opportunities for what you can do in your desired reality. But you're going to need to consolidate them together. Don't let your individuality stop what you've been doing in your networks and in your organizations. But at this point, the organization now has an opportunity to serve you and what you want to do in the new Plutonian age of Aquarius that's coming along. That's going to be an important time for all of us, and it's going to be a very important time for Gemini. So, I hope you guys enjoyed that. So, I'm just poking around at our comments here. Irene has mentioned that the 11th house is a house of humanity, and that's true. Again, Aquarius relates to organizations and gains. The house, specifically, the house system, is different from the signs, and the Vedic people especially make that distinction. So Aquarius is very humanitarian, and it has this humanity aspect to it. It's building a well for the collective community. But the 11th house is ultimately our personal gains that we gain through what we do for the community. Because when everyone recognizes that we've done something for the collective good, they lift up those, and this helps to build on your individual gains. The 11th house can be a humanitarian house. It compels people to, especially spiritual-minded people, because there is an egotism involved in it. The nature of the gains that are available there can pull people out of the conciseness of their devotion to humanity on the greater scale. And it puts pressure on them too. Mia Moore has asked, we've got quite a few people mentioning things, and I'm glad that everybody's enjoying this. Cool. 4 blessings is homeschooling 3 little ones. That's awesome to hear. I love the idea of homeschooling. Glad Nicholas is enjoying my hat. Mia Moore is asking if Gemini Rising will want a different type of partner. That's hard to say. I wouldn't say necessarily. Really, Gemini Rising will want a partner that will be aligned with their deepest spiritual desires in life. That's what Pluto and Aquarius is going to be teaching Gemini Rising. Julie Woolley has given me some warm hugs from icy Ireland. I'm glad to hear that. And I'm glad you guys are enjoying the hat. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I have to admit, I've just got to be real about this. It sucks. I knew that these videos would take a little while to start getting into. And I can tell, basically, I went and played guitar with a bunch of friends last night. I can tell my voice is a little bit cooked. You can hear it if you're used to hearing my voice. My voice is very cooked right now. Newfoundland, awesome, JK. Nice to see you. I'm Canadian as well. So because my voice is so cooked, I can tell that me getting all 12 of these done the way that we've been doing them is probably not going to be a thing. I might be able to do 2 or 3 more. We've gone through Aries, Taurus, and Gemini. I'm going to try to finish Cancer, Leo, and Virgo. And I think for sanity's sake, for reality's sake, I think that we got to call her a day after probably, hopefully, once I finish Virgo. Thank you, Julie Woolley, and everybody for being where I'm at there. So I'm going to do that. And then what we're going to have to do, I'm going to mention it as we get there. We're going to have to start Libra Rising and go from Libra through to... we're going to go from Libra through to Pisces at the another day. So I hope you guys all enjoy that. I'm not too bad right now. I can still keep rocking and rolling, but I can tell my voice is getting there. We might even do it where we do 3. We'll go from Aries to Cancer, and then we'll go Leo to Scorpio, and then we'll go Sagittarius to Pisces. I might do it that way. So we'll see how it goes after we do Cancer. But we'll see. It'd be nice to get these done in 3 in that way. So, I'm Dustin Cormier, folks. Thanks to all my friends for hanging out here with me. Mentioning for me to take care of my health. I do appreciate you and I love you. Let's see how I feel after Cancer Rising. So, I'm going to have a quick drink of water here. All right, everybody. Action. Giving myself a little flag so I can tell where in the video I'm going to be changing to the next sign. I'm Dustin Cormier. This is How to Rock Astrology. We've been enjoying talking about all these different signs, and now we have gotten into the sign of Cancer Rising. What does Pluto and Aquarius have to do with Cancer Rising? Now, my friend Tech Zed has just asked. I'm gonna say again. We are not going to go through all of the signs today. I'm probably gonna end at either Cancer, Leo, or Virgo, depending on how long I can keep going today. And then from there, we're gonna finish the rest another day. So thank you for everybody for hanging out. We're gonna get into Cancer Rising now. How is Cancer Rising going to fare with Pluto being in the sign of Aquarius? So, for Cancer, Pluto has been in your 7th house of Capricorn. And Neptune has been in the lucky 9th house of Pisces. So how this went for you ultimately is going to depend on their dispositors. That's Saturn in terms of Capricorn and Jupiter in terms of Pisces. With Pluto in Capricorn, how this is ultimately going to go for you really just depends on what planets are. It depends mostly on the dispositor Saturn, but also whatever planets are in Capricorn. If they are positively placed, Pluto coming through is going to bring positivity, because Pluto is ultimately an amplifier. And this is something that I've been saying in all these different videos. When you look at the traditional configuration of the chakras, we can see that the root chakra, it has Capricorn and Aquarius at the bottom. Then Jupiter rules the Svadhisthana chakra. Mars rules the solar plexus chakra. Venus rules the heart chakra. Mercury rules the throat chakra, right? Chatty Mercury. And then Cancer and Leo rule the 6th chakra, the Ajna chakra. The luminaries rule the 6th chakra of the Ajna. So we can see that the outer planets don't really belong in this schema. Now, some people would say that there are correlations of the outer planets with certain signs, like Pluto is correlated with Scorpio, and Neptune is correlated with Pisces, and these are given sub-rulership in Western astrology. I would convey them as not being connected in this way. I usually just say, as a Vedic astrologer, a neo-Vedic astrologer, that Pluto, Uranus, and Neptune are all their own planets. They belong outside of the colored light rays of the first 6 chakras defined by the signs. So Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto amplify things in their own way outside of that schema. So when Pluto's coming through Capricorn, it's not necessarily good or bad. What makes it good or bad depends on what is happening with Saturn and any points that are happening in Capricorn. Obviously, we know that the 7th cusp is going to be here in Capricorn, but it's also possible, if you are an early Cancer, that your 8th house cusp is also falling in the sign of Capricorn. It would have a 7th house resonance applied to 8th house things. That's how the Vedic people consider it, as the cusps are almost like a planet in themselves. So whatever planet is in Capricorn, if it's well placed, it's going to get great things. For example, if you have Mars exalted here in Capricorn in the 7th house, that Mars is going to be exalted, and so it's going to have positive strengths there. But difficulties can still arise. You know, if you have Mars exalted there, it's going to be very strong. And if Mars is with any other planets, like, say, Saturn, when Mars and Saturn are together in Capricorn, it's an interesting thing because they're both okay. They both don't do bad there. But Saturn, because it's exalted in Mars exalted in Capricorn would strongly damage, as a malefic, as a fiery planet, it would strongly damage whatever else is there. And this would be amplified through Pluto. So these are the things to consider. If any planets are with their friends in Capricorn, it would bring positive things. If Venus is in Capricorn, it's delighted by Saturn. So Venus would do well in the 7th house of Capricorn here. If Venus is delighted by Mercury in Capricorn, it's going to be amplified by Pluto as well. This is just to get you thinking of how Pluto's amplification works when it's transiting. So the theme of Pluto, generally, it relates to subordination. It's a subordination that comes through pressure being put by some kind of mob reality. In this case, in Capricorn, it usually relates to infrastructure, material, financial realities, government, economy. You know, you're under the economy's thumb. We all kind of are when Pluto is in Capricorn. You know, it's interesting to point out that America's chart has Pluto in Capricorn, and a lot of the American people as a nation tend to be dealing with being under the thumb of the economy. But when this is positively expressed, the economy can help serve the individual, because this is the root chakra. Capricorn and Aquarius rule the root chakra. So for Cancer rising, Pluto in Capricorn has brought this out. Since 2008, the self-effort of your root chakra has been tested through the 7th house. You've been subordinate to your own primal needs for intimacy and connecting with individual people who you vibe with. Now you're starting to see how the connections you've made or sustained ultimately stand up in practical matters of family and business, and in the combining of monetary, wallets through marriage, right? Pluto now in Aquarius is building on connections you've made through the 7th house, and that's probably business partnership too. Cancer rising is known to be quite the business person, typically. Even though it's an emotional sign, it's very hard and strong about using business ties to develop and stick to the individual needs of the Cancer, which are essentially emotional. It has emotional desires, but it gets that impulse completed through what it does in business and through the connections that it has, and as an entrepreneurial consciousness, because Cancer has the sun, Leo, in the 2nd house. Cancer is usually quite the entrepreneur, although ultimately the entrepreneurial ship at a deep level, the desires are materialistic in the sense of having experiences, earthy experiences with friends and family. That's because Taurus rules the 11th house. So these are just little clues as to the nature of Cancer rising. Now, you have been subordinate to these primal needs for intimacy, and now you are seeing how the connections you've made stand up in practical matters of family and business and investing with others. How can I invest with the others I've connected with in order to purify my finances and to purify my financial energies? So, my friend Deza Razma has asked if this is tropical or sidereal, and it is in fact tropical. When it comes to transits, you've mentioned that maybe because it's transits, the sidereal and tropical doesn't matter, but it does. I'm a tropical Vedic astrologer, so Pluto is coming into Aquarius for the tropical people. Pluto is still going to be in Capricorn for the sidereal, and I don't practice sidereal. That's just my personal thing. So now Neptune has been in Pisces for Cancer, and that's your lucky 9th house. So that has probably been a positive thing. It coming into the 10th house is very important. This is really the most important part of Cancer's chart. Is the 9th house is important for everybody. Coming from the 9th to the 10th is very important for Cancer. The reason is, this is a Vedic understanding that I like to share with Western people. Mars is the most important planet for Cancer rising. Can you guess why? The reason is because Mars rules the 10th house, which is an angle that brings opportunity, and the 5th house, which brings luck coming from within the inherent gifts of the soul. So wherever Mars is in Cancer's chart, if it's well placed, Cancer does very well. If it's ill placed, then Cancer rising has a lot of difficulty because it has this, so much is lined up for Mars for Cancer rising. So while Pluto's been in Pisces, while Neptune's been in Pisces, this is the 9th house, and this is important too. This has been in your 2nd chakra. Neptune has been in Pisces in the Svadhisthana chakra. So you've probably been dealing with things related to the emotional connection that you have to your role in life. And there's probably been ego checks, ego confrontations that have probably been painful but ultimately satisfying. Neptune going through the 9th house is a satisfying thing for everybody. Now it's been going through emotional connections to its role in life, and now you are coming to find that what you've gained while Neptune was in Pisces, you're going to take the emotions and the connection of the Svadhisthana chakra that you've had there and apply it through the solar plexus chakra. Now Neptune is in Aries in the solar plexus, and this is causing you to desire to build on things through your action in career and what you actually do with your career. So now your integrity of heart and spiritual authenticity, your ethical authenticity, is being tested in how you further your career and self-development. The 10th house is a self-development sign. It's tied in with the 5th house for Cancer. So there's going to be a real compulsion while Neptune is here in the 10th house to develop on yourself. And these developments are going to be coming through the 8th house of Aquarius. For a lot of people, I'm going to say this first. Let's stick to Neptune being in Aries. Spiritual authenticity will cause you to break past your limiting boundaries, although this threatens to be egocentric at times. All of us are learning when it comes to the solar plexus chakra, the 3rd chakra of Aries, right? We can see Aries is the 3rd, the solar plexus chakra. We are all learning at this point how to develop on our will in a way that is not egotistical, in a way that serves humanity, serves the soul, serves the transcendental needs of the collective through our own individual soul needs. Because what's good for one person's soul is good for the collective. So when it comes to Neptune and Aries, for all of us, we all need to learn how to have our own boundaries and how to fight for them, how to fight for what's good and right for us. In Cancer's case, you're going to be doing this through your career. What do you need to do in your career? And what do you need to fight for in order to develop on what you need in yourself to do well in your career? Now, the pressure is going to be coming equally from here. It will threaten to be egocentric at times, is the word that I've given here. Essentially, this will mean that your self-development will probably come at the expense and sacrifice of other things. And you need to not let go of those other things, especially if there's anything in Aries during this period, whatever that is. Like, let's say, for example, you've got Venus in Aries in the 10th house. That's a good thing because Venus is helping out your 10th house and it's helping out Aries. There will be a desire to use Venus to go through further in your career. But this will come at the expense of what Venus represents, which of course is your 4th house and your 11th house. Venus rules Taurus, the 11th, and Libra, the 4th house. So if Venus is here, there will be an amplified need to use your peace at home to help gain you gains in career and to help with this self-development. And if Venus is well placed, that will be a positive connection. If Venus is not well placed, then your home life will be sacrificed for your career. You can apply this to all the planets that's going on that are in Aries while Neptune's coming through here in your 10th house. Ultimately, any planet in the 10th house is going to aid, and it's especially if benefics are in the 10th house. But any planet tends to be served by being close to the 10th house cusp. Mind you, just because you're a Cancer doesn't mean your 10th house cusp falls in Aries. Keep that in mind. The cusps are different from the whole sign house system that we're using as tropical Vedic astrologers here. So ultimately, there's going to be a check on what is happening for you in your 10th house, through your 10th house, and through your career. And there's going to be an interesting thing happening because you're going to be trying to develop on yourself while also connecting with powerful people through Pluto in the 8th. This is something I haven't mentioned yet, and it's similar to what I mentioned for Taurus Rising in a way, because Pluto was in their 8th house. Now it's coming to their 9th house. Sorry, that's Gemini, rather. For Gemini Rising, Pluto has been in their 8th house of Capricorn. So for you, Cancer, Pluto is now in Aquarius, is now entering your 8th house. And when Pluto comes through the 8th house, you've already done a lot of your root chakra stuff. So there's going to be a desire to connect with what you've done through your own family, through your own marriage, to connect you as a couple, plug you into a circuit that's outside of your coupleship, that is greater than your own, just the individuality of you and your partner and your personal family, your personal circle of friends. You're looking to use them and connect them to some greater circuit of the collective through Aquarius, but in particular through powerful groups. Pluto is going to be looking to connect with powerful groups through the 8th house, and this will give you great opportunities to develop on your 10th house. So long as Saturn is well placed, you will find groups that serve you ultimately. But no matter what, if you've got a strong Mars, you might connect with the wrong people in the wrong groups, but you'll still be doing great self-development work here. A Cancer who has a good, well-placed Saturn and a well-placed Mars in this period will find great career, spiritual self-development and resolution while also connecting in a group. And you will be compelled to use your will in whatever groups you connect with in powerful ways. So keep this in mind as things come along. Powerful things can happen for Cancer while Pluto is in Aquarius, as long as your planets are placed in the right way and you have some awareness of when to let the genie out of the bottle. Now, what that means is I'm referring to specific transits that are happening for all of us that are going to be difficult. While Pluto is in Aquarius, it's important to be aware of what Saturn is doing as the dispositor. Saturn is the dispositor of Aquarius and Capricorn. So wherever Saturn is transiting, while Pluto is in Aquarius, is going to show the place where Pluto's energy is gouging into your individual chart in a very intensified way. Saturn is channeling what Pluto is doing in Aquarius. Now, while Saturn is with the period to watch out for is March 2023 and February of 2026. To basically, 2023 to 2028. Because in 2028, Saturn's coming into your 11th house. Now, really, this Cancer, more than anybody, has a stacked deck in terms of powerful things being available to happen in this period. For most of the signs, and I'm going to say this, for most of the signs that we've been talking about, Pluto in Aquarius is going to channel Saturn in Aries. In 2026, Saturn enters Aries. And that's where Saturn is debilitated. It's going to be a very difficult thing for most people. And even while Saturn and Pisces are together from 2023 to 2026, the Saturn is going to have difficulty. For Cancer, Pisces is the 9th house, and that's positive, and Aries is the 10th house of career, while the world is suffering, if the world is suffering economic relapses at this point, Cancer is going to find ways of using the communal collective needs to gain personal wealth in ways that are not necessarily evil, in ways that can ultimately, just like, setting up a soup kitchen, the logistics of a soup kitchen does still need money, still needs resources, and people need to survive well through that. So especially, this could be a time, if Cancer Rising is doing well in their lives, for, what's the word? It starts with a P. Doing things for charities and stuff like that. Building charities, building things that will develop you, because the world is going to be looking for stuff like this, and they're going to be looking for not just charities, but easy-going logistical matters of just starting simple businesses that are good for the people, that are going to give everybody a decent wage, but ultimately are still a well-oiled economical machine that won't make a lot of money right away, but will develop you in the business world. So the reason I'm saying this is because Saturn is going to be with Neptune. It's going to be debilitated in Aries. The economy is going to be having difficulty at this point. Philanthropy, thank you, Julie Woolley. I really appreciate you coming in for me there. Philanthropy is going to be a thing for Cancer Risings. While Pluto's in Aquarius generally, because Aquarius symbolizes that sort of the well, putting water into the well for the collective will bring powerful name and recognition to Cancer Rising that could do you ultimately well in business. And you don't need to necessarily be philanthropic about this. You could just find that you're building businesses for people who just need to work a basic wage, even minimum wage. For some people, working some kind of job is better than nothing. Lots of this kind of thing is going to be happening, especially for Cancer Risings, because that's the power of the 8th house. The desire to get something going through the needs of the collective that is ultimately going to serve the Cancer Rising individually. Let's start off with March 2023 to February 2026. While Saturn is here, again, Cancer has the best setup for the deck in this period. Cancer is most well positioned throughout this whole thing. While Saturn is in Pisces with Neptune, this is a vulnerable time for everybody. Saturn is going to be in the Svadhisthana chakra. It's going to have emotional desires to connect. But since this is your lucky 9th house, Cancer already has the instinct to be emotionally connected to, part of the role, the 9th house, the role that Cancer sees itself having in the world is as a beloved benefactor who does things for emotional reasons. Kind of a Santa Claus-y kind of situation. So Cancer loves to do things for its loved ones and to gain emotional relief through it. And this is their lucky 9th house. So when Saturn is here in Pisces with Neptune, you're going to be emotionally compelled to make powerful connections for Pluto in the 8th. And it might cause you to be connected in ways that you desire to give emotionally for something. Now, if you have an ill Jupiter, this could go in bad ways. You could piss away your emotional desire for things by being emotionally connected to powerful people. But you'll find in the end that those powerful people don't actually care about you. But this is still your 9th house. You will learn the fact that your emotional reality is a part of your deeper spiritual desires. Because the Svadhisthana chakra, the 2nd chakra, is your 9th house. Pisces is the 9th house. You're going to learn this the hard way or the easy way, right? So this is something that you've got to watch out for in this period, is be discerning about the emotional, how you spend your emotional earnings and your emotional energy. Put it towards something that's ultimately meaningful so you don't have to learn it the hard way, no matter how your Jupiter's placed. Because when Saturn is in Aries, you are going to have emotional, blistering emotional feelings, because your Lord, the seventh Lord, Saturn here, and the eighth Lord, it's going to be emotional, sexy connection to self-development in the 10th house. And you should conserve your sexual chakra. You should conserve your sexual energy. And brahmacharya will be important for Cancers at this time. And I don't mean cutting off your sexual connections completely. I mean being consciously aware of your sexual chakra energy, because this will be a time while Pluto's in the 8th, Saturn will be in the 10th. Everybody will be on a tough economical situation while Saturn is channeling Pluto in Aquarius. The material financial reality of the root chakra, remember that's Aquarius for everybody. Saturn is channeling the root chakra for the collective, and it's debilitated at this point, which means everybody's root chakra, the financial system is going to go through a real hash at this point. And again, you can use this, Cancer, more than anybody else, can use this constructively. Now, what you should have happening ideally is some kind of family situation, some kind of religious or ethical situation worked out and figured out, so that at this time, when Saturn is debilitated, you can channel your sexual chakra through the 8th house and the root chakra. Channel your sexual chakra into something meaningful, calm yourself, get the compulsion of the opportunism of the 8th house out of the way, because the sexual chakra nature here will cause you to desire to get out of the detritus, to get out of the pain and suffering that everyone's experiencing at this time, and that you will be experiencing, especially in relation to your marriage. Your marriage could get a strain here because the 7th Lord and the 8th Lord, Saturn, is being constrained. You might feel like your marriage partner doesn't have much to give you, and you'll want to connect with other people because they have more to connect with. But you'll be well served. Again, this is why this period is important, 2023 to 2026. Experience the emotional connections that you have with your marriage partner in a spiritual way, the 9th house. And then this will lead you during this period to connect the sexual chakra in a way that's not going to piss it all away. And you should be practice brahmacharya, be discerning about your sexual energy at this time, so that during this period you essentially can hold the ship and do good business with business partners in ways that are practical and don't have the unnecessary compulsion of desire for things that will ultimately have an egotistical Neptune, an egotistical, self-willed desire to climb on top of everybody at the expense of a team. Because Pluto in the 8th is teaching you to be in a powerful team in a way that you can be a leader, but not too egotistical. And, you don't want to be insubordinate to the group organization you're working under at this time and working with. So the energies of your root and sexual chakras will cause this to shake at this time. But if you can channel it well, you are one person, Cancer Rising, more than all the other rising signs, who have a deck set up that you can do very good things with your sexual chakra. You can hold long-range businesses in a time when everyone else is probably in the gutter, suffering. You are going to be able to start and instigate money in businesses with other people that can go well. Still be discerning at this point. But you have Cancer. Cancer is the one person who I will say that this will be a positive, fruitful time for you to I hate to say it this way. Donald Trump is a funny character. That's all I'm going to say. But what Donald Trump has said is, never waste a good crisis. It's a terrible thing to say because I think some difficult things will be happening for the economy and the world at this time. Cancer is the one person for whom this crisis also equals opportunity, as the old Chinese saying says. Crisis and opportunity are related, and this is more true for Cancer rising than anybody else. So be discerning of what you can do there at this time. When Saturn comes into Taurus in the 11th house, this will be a time of you connecting all the self-development that you've been developing while Saturn was in the 10th. This will be a relief for everybody, and it'll be a relief for you. You will start to develop, the whole world will be getting on its feet at this time, and you will be on the bottom foundation of some kind of business opportunities. You will have been the one who had the opportunity to sign your name on the dotted line to get the business started. And when Saturn is in the 11th, this will be your opportunity to invite others who you actually love to come together and be a part of whatever you've been building at this period. Saturn is going to be relieved for everybody here, and it's going to be a relief for you too. Now, Saturn's going to move through your 12th in Gemini in 2030 to 2032. Saturn's going to be with Uranus in the South Node here in Gemini in the 12th house. This will be a period where you will suffer some loss. Just be aware in this period, the best advice I could give is that there will be loss at this point. It'll be emotional loss. It'll be financial loss. But accept the losses that you get here. Know that there's going to be a lot of vulnerability with Saturn here. But in this case, when God closes a door, it opens a window. But the window will not be open for you at this moment. The window will this is really just a hole, a sinkhole that you've got to step over. Be conservative about business opportunities and ultimately accept what losses do come. In fact, look positively towards the things that you'll be glad to let go of in this period. And that will be a positive spin on what is essentially Saturn moving through the 12th with Uranus there. You could lose a lot in your life, but because it's Uranus is neutral. Saturn does well in Gemini, so the South Node here will show that whatever you're letting go of, you're probably going to be glad to let go of, although it won't look that at the time. Now, for Cancer rising in 2035, when Saturn is in the 2nd house, this will be the point where you're going to finally be getting sick of a lot of what we've all been building in the collective when all this bad economical stuff happens. By this point, the North Node will be in Leo. Everyone will be desiring we've done our work on the well. Now I want to go back to my individual kingdom and work on my rice, work on my own farm, work on what I've been building for my own personal 2nd house. This will be a time of great resolution for family, the erotic psyche of the Cancer, who will have been dealing with career things at the expense of individual erotic psyche. It's the 2nd house. It's the house of Taurus. So at this point, it will be important for you to be developing on your home life, your family life, and developing on, even feeling sexy and feeling like there's an enjoyment in life, because you will have been missing that for a while. And this is the time to develop it through your own personal individual enterprise. You will have been subordinate likely to some kind of system all the way up to this point. And this is the one time where you really have an opportunity to develop your individual power through what you've done for the collective. And then, of course, Saturn is going to move. The North Node is going to move as well. And it's going to go on. Pluto's going to remain in Aquarius for a long time. So that theme is not going to move for a while. But this is going to be one moment where you can solidify and crystallize everything. So keep that in mind when 2035 comes along for you, Cancer, and for what you can do in your personal enterprise as an entrepreneur and as a family person and as a friend to all your friends. Right. So that was Pluto and Aquarius for Cancer Rising. I hope you guys enjoyed that. It was nice seeing you guys, giving me lots of little comments along the whole way through. I'm so glad everyone's digging what I talked about for Cancer. Like I said, Cancer has luck in terms of the outer planets being where they are. But remember that ultimately how it's all going to come through, it depends on the sign of Aquarius, the sign of Aries, and the dispositors. That's Saturn in particular. Pluto in Aquarius is going to do great for everybody, mostly depending on Saturn and any positive planets in Aquarius, especially Venus. If you have Venus in Aquarius, this is true for everybody. There's going to be a lot of positive things that come from Pluto visiting Aquarius. But even if you got Venus there, if your Saturn is having difficulty, if it's conjunct a strong Mars or a strong Sun, or if you have the Sun in Aquarius, the Sun has difficulty in the sign of Aquarius, your individuality will really be stomped on while Pluto is here. And for you, Cancer, that is your second lord. So especially it's going to be important for you to, if you have Sun in Aquarius, it's going to be important to hold on to your individual enterprise and be willing to be almost like homeless and to have difficult emotional things while Pluto is in Aquarius. If you have the Sun in Aquarius for Leo rising, for Cancer rising. The relief will ultimately come around 2035 in that period, although it'll still be a tough period. But after that, the deck will be very cleared for your personal financial root chakra. I wonder what your rising sign is, Julie Woolley, because you have Sun in Aquarius. Of course, lots of people have Sun in Aquarius. So all the Sun in Aquarius people are going to have to deal with what we're talking about, but it's not enough to sink you. You have to have a really damaged Sun in order for Pluto in Aquarius to really give you a lot of difficulty. I shouldn't even have said that. I should be careful with what I say. I got Mercury in Sagittarius, folks. Just because you have Sun in Aquarius and your Cancer rising, the Sun, Leo, rules your second house. When Pluto's coming through Aquarius, it doesn't mean that you're going to be homeless if you have the Sun in Aquarius. But I was saying that to show that your financial roots are going to be challenged in this period. So keep that in mind. Now, my friend Truth Love has asked about the plan to go through the rising signs. You'll notice, Truth Love, if you... eventually I'm going to have these, the time markers for all these. But essentially, if you look back on whatever sign you're moving through in this video, you'll see that it keep going far back. Eventually, you'll see I go like this, and this is the start of the sign. And that would be the beginning of Pluto in Aquarius for that rising sign. And it doesn't just look at 2026. We look at the whole period of Pluto in Aquarius. Plus, we look at the coming 10 years or so. So I hope that that makes sense. So, I hope you guys dug that. I got time for one more. We're 2.5 hours in. So I knew this would be a long video, and it is what it is. We are now going to be moving through Pluto in Aquarius for Leo rising. I'm a Leo rising, so I'm excited to be talking about that. First, I'm going to go to the bathroom again. Seems to be that type of day for me. I'm also going to nibble on a piece of chocolate. And when I come back, we're going to start moving through Leo rising, Pluto transiting through the sign of Aquarius, which will be your 7th house. I'll just be right back in one moment, and then we'll go through it. chocolate. My friend Teresa has just given me a $10 tip. Thank you so much, Teresa. You're always treating me, and I really appreciate that. I'm glad everybody's enjoying. Oh, thank you, Jilly Wooly. I'm definitely going to be making myself probably a hot toddy or something like that soon. So it's nice to see my friends are hanging out with me here and telling me to take care of myself. The Leo in me has been learning that, as we're going to discuss. We have had Pluto in Capricorn in our 6th house since 2008. And it's good for us Leos in particular to be paying attention to what we're doing to our bodies. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so glad you've all been hanging out with me and watching. Now we're going to action. We're going to our next sign now. The next sign we're going to be talking about in this session is Leo Rising. How is Leo Rising going to be dealing with Pluto moving through the sign of Aquarius? So, let's get into it. As everybody might know, in case you didn't already tell, Leo Rising happens to be my own rising sign. So I'm kind of excited to move through this just for my own sake of just getting through and seeing what this is all about. So let's see what's been going on with Leo. For Leo Rising, Pluto has been moving through our 6th house of Capricorn, while Neptune has been moving through the interesting and tricky 8th house. We'll talk a little bit about where that's at. Neptune moving through the 8th has probably, for all of us Leos, been what I would call a sexy time. A very mystical time in terms of the sexual aura of Leo. Particularly, Jupiter is a very powerful and important point for Leo Rising, because Jupiter rules the important 5th house, and the 5th house resonates with Leo as the 5th sign. And Jupiter rules the 5th house of Sagittarius as well as the 8th house of Pisces. So there is a connection of the sexual chakra to our overall energy that we fling towards things. What this has been leading to for everybody, I'll say what I've got in my thing here. With Pluto in Capricorn, it's been in our root chakra. We've been learning about the 6th house. So it's possible that we Leos have been subordinate to primal feelings of debt, guilt, and or ill health. Now you want to transform the remains of those lessons through business and possibly marriage in ways that actually mean something for you. In ways that you can actually connect that are more practical and functional than the emotional exploring that we've been doing in an excessive way. Now we're looking to connect with people. And Pluto in the 7th, for a Leo, if you have a well-placed Saturn, Saturn is always a difficult thing for Leo because it rules the tricky 6th house, and the 7th house has its own difficulty too. Marriage is tough for Leo because the 6th house is tied into the 7th. So you're typically Leos will connect with a partner that they are happy to confront with difficulties and things that are happening in the marriage. The marriage partner humbles Leo deeply. Pluto will make this more apparent than ever, especially while it's in Aquarius. And the whole time it's in Aquarius, Leos are going to get a humbling with regards to how they deal with their partner and how they confront issues, monetary issues, talking in a way that is conducive to positive marriage relationship harmony. These are all very important things for Leo in this period. And so you've been dealing with your feelings of subordination, even feeling like your bosses, and even, I felt like my bosses treated me like a piece of shit at work. And then I would come home and I would try to work hard to gain love by the people around me. And I still felt subordinate. I still felt like kind of like a piece of shit for a lot of this period. But now I've learned and gained an internal feeling of being able to lead my own emotions through the 6th, and my own debt, my own health. Boundaries has especially been important. Now, what you've learned in terms of boundaries, in terms of having your own emotional boundaries, and dealing with what you need to personally accept as your limitations. Once you accept what your limitations are, you can deal in business, because then people know what to expect from you. And a lot of Leos right now will probably bite off more than they can chew and promise more than they can deliver while Pluto is in the 7th, especially for male Leos, but all Leos have Neptune in the 9th. There's a spiritual desire to have your will and your dignity respected. And this is important. For Leo, having Neptune in Aries, it's important for you to be respected at this time for the dignity that you deserve as somebody who is a leader of people, because that's what Leos do. You're leading the collective, Aquarius, through your individuality. While Neptune is in Aries, Neptune is therefore coming from the Svadhisthana chakra up to the solar plexus chakra. And this is Aries. This is our 9th house. So at this time, Neptune is going to challenge you to be willing to use your will to apply yourself as a leader. And this is going to be a huge relief from what Capricorn and Pluto and Capricorn has been doing to you in terms of this insubordination. Now you're learning to deal with people in business and to apply that eat 'em and smile Leo gusto to lead, to be the instigator, but do so in a way that ultimately doesn't make you insubordinate to your company and your organization. Leos are going to be very important for when Pluto is in Aquarius. Pluto in the 7th house is a house of business. And in business, people need, when in the 7th house being the house of business as well as marriage, business partnerships, the connecting of business partnerships, networking, and finding people and opportunities that will bring you business in the future once more 8th house things are kind of happening. So this is an important time for business. And while you're dealing with these business things, Neptune, again, is in Aries. So you need to fortify your ability to be a leader while also learning to be subordinate in ways that are appropriate. Appropriate subordination to powerful allies is probably the best catchphrase that I can give for Leo in this period. Appropriate subordination to powerful allies without ultimately losing your spiritual sense of masculine dignity. And when I say masculine, I mean this for men and women. Everybody has a divine feminine, divine masculine. And all of us, everybody is going to be leaning into their divine masculine when Neptune is in the solar plexus chakra of Aries. For Leos, Neptune being here in Aries is in the 9th house, and there's a spiritual need to have this will wrought in a harmonious but ultimately still true to your needs way. So Leo has Neptune in its 9th house, and this is very lucky. Leo is going to experience a lucky period. And really the makeup for Leo here is pretty positive. One thing that needs to be said is that while Neptune is coming through the 9th, it's a spiritually satisfying compulsion to detach your ego from your role in life and marriage. And you need to see your role in marriage and life from a spiritual, ethical vantage. Neptune is going to push you to have this experience and to objectify yourself, to say, you know, like, I'm somebody, maybe I don't feel like I'm somebody who's right to have some kind of role, either in marriage or whatever your ashram is. For most householders, it means possibly either starting a family, though not necessarily, that's more of a 5th house thing, but more of connecting to a community, to a guru figure, and it's the inner guru. What are you living for? This is what is going to be challenged while Neptune is here. And that role in life is going to detach your ego so that you can have this role. And this could be even being a powerful person, being a person who like leads people in movies, being a director in a film. And maybe you're, you know, we all can have this sort of humbleness that like, I don't deserve this place of power. But Leo here is being challenged, your own 3rd chakra, which is an eternal thing for all of us. We all eternally have a 3rd chakra. Neptune here is channeling you, testing you to challenge yourself to abide by the eternal nature and truth of the 3rd chakra through having some role that is meaningful for you in life. It's usually going to be some kind of a job or an occupation or a higher knowledge. The 9th house is about higher knowledge. So really in this period, meetings of important people, marriage partners, and guru figures that challenge your ego for the better are going to happen while Neptune is in Aries. And if your Mars is well placed, this will bring incredibly good allies, teachers, and guides. If Mars is not well placed, then you could get sucked up into people who you think are going to lead you in positive ways, but who ultimately are damaging to your guidance. But Neptune coming through here is a lucky place. It'll always bring lucky things for Leo in this period. But if you have difficult planets here, like if you have Saturn debilitated in Aries here, you're going to be compelled at a root chakra way, especially with the compulsion of Pluto and Aquarius. You'll be compelled for survival reasons to be connected to guru types that are seedy and aren't ultimately ethically good for what serves you in the future. So keep in mind this dynamic of Neptune possibly connecting you with guru figures that aren't good for you, but ultimately one step in the wrong direction is how you know, once you recognize that you're in the wrong direction, you just go into the right direction. This is a thing of Neptune in terms of connecting yourself to guide figures. Marriage is very important as a figure for the 7th and 9th house for Leos in this period, because the 9th and the 7th both relate to marriage. So what goes on with marriage partners at this point is going to be very important for everyone. So I've spent a lot of time on Leo already. For Leo, once we know that Pluto is in Aquarius, and the dispositor for Aquarius is Saturn. So wherever Saturn is going to be channeling the narrative at that point in time. From March 2023 to February 2026, Saturn is with Neptune in Pisces. This is going to be really bringing out positive things. This is going to be a relief in terms of getting out of the 7th house, and now Saturn can find positive opportunities. Now, all the things that I've mentioned in terms of the sexy, kinky energy of Neptune in Pisces in the 8th, Saturn is going to consolidate what has happened through here. And it could bring opportunities through the erotic feelings that you have inside yourself and using them in a positive way. But this would be a period where it's very possible that emotional compulsions will cause you to connect with people for these sexual reasons, like having sexual attractions to people in business or people who are sexually attracted to you in business, which can be a very powerful thing. Powerful people like to work unconsciously with people that they have kinky sexual attractions to. And that's a neutral phenomenon. This is the nature of the 8th house. Sexuality is not a bad thing. Those feelings can be positive and can bring great satisfaction, and you don't need to necessarily go and pull down the trousers of your boss while this kind of a connection is occurring. So long as your heart is ultimately seeing the divine in them as what it is, and ultimately keeping your heart close to connections that are meaningful to you while you use this chakra energy in an objective and appropriate way. Single people can probably use this to make connections, but again, what we have to caution with is that Saturn here is with Neptune. It's going to get foggy and nebulous, and it's in the 8th house. It's very indicative at this particular point, especially while Pluto is interacting with Saturn through Aquarius. There's going to be a strain on the economy. There's going to be a strain on your feelings of general subordination. You're going to feel like it's going to be so nice to be connected sexually, to be lusted after, that the subordination you're supposed to be getting, which is the 7th house, which is deep character building that you're supposed to be doing. The easy way out is just to feel sexually attractive in superficial ways. And if you piss away too much of your sexual energy there, you will waste the very important character soul building that's supposed to be happening in 2026 when Saturn comes into your 9th house with Neptune in the sign of Aries, where it's debilitated. So in this period, you will need your sexual chakra energy will be much more strongly tested. The world will be in economical difficulty, and you'll feel insubordinate, and you'll be dealing with emotional marriage things, and this is a very vulnerable period. In this point, it's most important for Leo to connect to some kind of people, to come again, some kind of guruship, some kind of ashram, some kind of marriage partner that will carry them in their sexual chakra energy through to something more meaningful than just a superficial desire to jerk off on your own emotional, biological compulsion and your uncontrollability of your energy. It's funny, Julie Woolley is saying that you're too old for this. This is very much young people will be experiencing this more than anything. But even older folks will be experiencing things related to this. It'll be easier for older folks. Ultimately, older folks will be experiencing, in terms of Leo risings, will be experiencing remembrance of the connections that they've made in the past and where they've put their sexual erotic energy in the past. If it all went well in your life, you'll be remembered positive memories of how that all went while this is happening. But ultimately, for all of us Leos, ultimately, in the 9th house, when Saturn is transiting the 9th house, there will be a vulnerability period here where it will be deeply important to have a deeper use of the root chakra energy and the insubordination energy. You'll feel like the economy and your bosses and even your marriage partners are under your thumb for a moment. Be humble about it and give it up, swaha, as a desire to be subordinate to spirit at this moment. That's why in this period, it won't be as bad in 2023 to 2026, there won't be quite so much insubordination, but there will be opportunities to piss around with your erotic energy, and you want to put it to things and ultimately be conservative. Practice brahmacharya, not necessarily cutting it out completely, but you dealing with your energy, your emotional and sexual energy appropriately, and even more so from 2026 to 2028. There will finally be a relief once Saturn comes to the top of your chart, and this is a very important time for Leos. When Saturn comes to the top of your chart, this is the peak pinnacle of something that you've been building on for 27 years. Even if you're younger than 27, if you're 20 by the time this happens, then you will be experiencing something that your soul, even before this incarnation, has been building up to. Saturn in the 10th house is an important pinnacle peak of career. And it's at this moment that you'll be dealing and sketching out what you're going to be doing in your career, the connections and the skills that you'll want to have in your career for the next 27 years. And Pluto, being in the 7th, will be putting pressure on you to connect with organizations outside of yourself. Neptune will be constantly pushing you to apply your self-will in constructive ways, in earnest, spiritually not egoic ways that are ultimately satisfying for your role in life. So this will be a relief period here, and it will be the top of the chart. This is an important part for everybody when Saturn is at the top of the chart. This will be a relief because Saturn won't be debilitated, and it won't be with Neptune in that debilitation. Now in 2030, Saturn will be with Uranus and the South Node trine to Pluto. This will be a period where you're deeply desiring to possibly have a family, do family things, and have romantic connections, and to develop your soul path at this time, because the North Node will be in Sagittarius. There will be North Node eclipses in Sagittarius at this time. But when the South Node eclipses happen, like I'll put it this way, there will be North Node eclipses in December around these years. December of 2030, December of 2031, around that area. The North Node will be eclipsing in Sagittarius in the 5th house. There will be desires in those moments to have meaningful connections to your soul path. The 5th house is very important for Leo because Leo is the natural 5th sign, right? But you will be using as a platform for your personal soul path engagement. The platform for it will be Saturn, Uranus, and the South Node in Gemini in the 11th house. There will be some tap dancing on spheres of networking, organizations, and infrastructures, which correlates, of course, naturally with Aquarius, and that's in that trine. So in this period, while you'll be inclined to let go of the networking connections that you've made, because the South Node, that's what the South Node does, it tends to let go of things in this way. Uranus will be here, which means there will be opportunities through Gemini, through the interactions of Uranus with Saturn. There will be a strong, intelligent grasp of how to just get your networking connections figured out so you can finally start working on what it all means to you in terms of your soul path. And you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater here. Keep your soul path in your eyesight, but also use the opportunism of the egotistical 11th house to get gains and to make networking connections. Use your social media, use all the connections that you have, but in a way that is, again, appropriate and discerning. And because ultimately you'll be sick of it all. Move through it all, because as you'll find out, whatever connections you make here will be conducive to opportunities to use what you truly want to do and through the 5th house. Finally, this very important period will be 2035. This will be an extremely important time for Leo. The South Node and Pluto will be at Aquarius, and the dispositor Saturn will be in the 1st house of Leo, where the North Node is. There'll be a deep, deep, deep desire, because at this point, Saturn and the North Node are now trine Neptune. and Aries. And this is in the first house, trine to Neptune in the 9th house. It's going to be great spiritual gains and pressure to be had here while you are working out at this time. The thing is that while Pluto's been in Aquarius, we've all been working on the well. We all have this, remember, Aquarius is the water bearer, builds a well for the communal collective. And all of us will have been working on opportunities that are shown through, remember, I've said this for a few things, especially in 2026, while Neptune and Saturn are in Aries. I'm going to use the phrase, I'm not going to say who it's by, I'm going to stop mentioning it, but you've already heard it. I guess it doesn't matter. Donald Trump always says, never waste a good crisis. And it's a kind of a messed up phrase, but the Chinese phrase, crisis brings opportunity, is true. It is a useful thing to consider. And while Pluto's putting pressure on Aquarius to change the material firmament, Saturn is debilitated in Aries, the world is going to go through a deep cleanse from 2026, really up to 2035. This will be one moment in particular where instead of building the well for the collective that we've all been doing, we will all be recognized for what work we've been doing for the collective, and we'll have an opportunity at this moment to develop on our own personal kingdom, to develop on what we actually want to develop for our own soul. And this is your first house, Leo, so this will be a very important time, 2035. Keep your eyes peeled for this time, because this will be a period when you will be glorified in developing on your personal grip on your identity and how your identity can be served by the collective changes that have been happening with Pluto and Aquarius. That will be a very important period for Leos. Very important indeed. See you later, Irene. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Got this like super dark chocolate for Christmas. My people know that I love chocolate. It's been serving me quite well. See you, Irene. Thanks for coming. So everybody, that was Pluto and Aquarius for Leo Rising. A very, what was the word we were using? Let's say honest portrayal of what I've been experiencing. I like to just be straight up about it. Hopefully any Leos who have been watching have seen perhaps a resonance with my story. But if you haven't gone through the same thing that I've gone through, the archetypes will be the same, and I'm sure that you've probably been experiencing things, at least internally. Maybe you haven't acted on them in the same way that I have. Leo's ultimately the big picture is be discerning about marriage and the connections that you make in terms of a spiritual connection to your will in marriage during the time that this whole period comes through. Now, I'm just checking out what everybody is saying from the session that we've had for Leo Rising here. Teresa's telling us that she was in hospice care, working in hospice, and that's very important work. That's beautiful to hear. Leo's making it happen, as Mia Moore says. For Blessings is enjoying the content, and I'm so glad to hear it. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And thank you, Tech Zed. I'm very glad that everybody has been hanging out with me and enjoying this. Now, call me a Leo, but I want to get one more done. I can tell that my voice is flagging. You've all been very sweet to encourage me to stop and go and have some lemon tea. And
and I promise I'm going to end it after we do Virgo. I feel like it's the right thing to do because that way it's a symmetry thing. Virgo is halfway through the zodiac, and plus I'm still feeling okay. So we can do one more here, folks. Thank you, Julie Woolley, for saying that I'm much loved, and I very much appreciate hearing that. So, ladies and gentlemen, if anybody is watching and you are a Virgo rising, we are in the zone. Yes, Julie Woolley, I'm definitely going to have a shot of whiskey in whatever I make after this is all done. I've been drinking Guinness lately. That's been really good for me. Take care, 4 blessings. I hope you've been enjoying it, and thanks for hanging out with us. CCG, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. Libra will not be tomorrow, my dear. I have to admit this because already I'm pushing myself because I partied last night for Christmas. So for anyone who's wondering, the next time we're going to be doing this series, we're going to finish Libra through Pisces, likely after the new year. This is just how it has to be. I'm glad that everybody has been hanging out with me for this. Not necessarily the next 2 weeks, but probably the first or second week of January is when we are going to be finishing, going from Libra Rising through Pisces Rising in this series. So, that's what we're going to be getting into at that time. But for now, we have one sign left, everybody. I'm so glad that everyone's been hanging out with me. And now, if everyone's quite ready, hope I don't have too much chocolate on my lips. It's worth it. Without further ado, folks, for any Virgo risings watching, now is your time to enjoy. Check it out. Action. We next have Virgo Rising, Pluto and Aquarius, Pluto transiting Aquarius for Virgo Rising. As well, we're also, of course, going to be discussing Neptune coming into Aries as well. So, let's see how it all comes through here, folks. And thank you for watching. This is Virgo Rising. Feel free to leave me any comments that you like. I'm Dustin Cormier. This is How to Rock Astrology. I'm a tropical Vedic astrologer. And this is the dirt on Pluto and Aquarius for Virgo Rising. So, for Virgo, Pluto has been in Capricorn in your lucky 5th house. This has probably been an enjoyable time, depending on all things considered. While Pluto is moving through its sign, it is going to be aided, everything is aided by being correlated with the 9th and the 5th houses, because it's of the nature of the earth, of the rising sign. So while Pluto's been in Capricorn, it's probably been an enjoyable time for Virgo. Really, Virgo is a bit protected when anything transits through Capricorn and Aquarius. You wouldn't think so because Capricorn is, of course, now coming into your 6th house. And this is a tricky house for everybody. Especially because Aquarius is the Mula Trikona of Saturn. It's a Vedic term. It means that Aquarius is the main ruler of Saturn, more so than Capricorn. But Virgo is spared a little bit from the 6th house difficulty because Pluto's dispositor, while it's in Aquarius, is Saturn. And Saturn also rules the 5th house. So since Saturn rules the 5th house and the 6th house, the 5th house rulership has auspiciousness and luck and positivity that makes this the Pluto's moving through Aquarius kind of a bit luckier and a bit easier on Virgo rising. So while Pluto has been in Capricorn in the 5th house, this has probably been a more enjoyable transit than most signs. And Virgo, thankfully, Virgo is really spared in this whole period because of this. Although it's going to be tricky having Neptune in Aries in the 8th house. That will be a bit difficult. Really, this is a tougher period. I'm gonna just saying it now. This is a bit tougher than the last Pluto sign. Pluto has gone from the easy 5th house. Now it's in the tougher 6th house. Again, it's not as bad for Virgo because Saturn also rules the 5th. But we see that technically by houses, Virgo is having a tougher time here. So it's a give and take. It's how it is for all signs. But we do see that this outer planet is in the 6th house of Aquarius, and the other longest outer planet is going to be in the 8th house. And the 8th house is difficult, and Mars is difficult generally for Virgo rising. Mars rules the difficult 3rd house and the difficult 8th house. It's a lusty planet. This is why Virgos, they can come off neurotic. They have such an immediate desire to deal with the things in their reality that they have to deal with whenever something becomes bothersome. So the 6th house is a difficult house, and the 8th house is a difficult house. So Virgo does have difficulty there. Just in terms of Pluto, it won't be that bad. And Pluto is the longer, more, difficult outer planet to deal with. So it's there are blessings and curses here. For Virgo rising, Pluto's been in your 5th house of Capricorn. How this went ultimately depends on the dispositor, Saturn, for Capricorn. And in the case of Neptune and Pisces, how that went depends on where Jupiter is in your chart. We have to remember that Pluto and Neptune, for everybody, it's not conveyed through the typical chakra system, right? We can see typically with the chakras, what happened. The chakras are ruled by the signs. The root chakra is Capricorn and Aquarius. The Svadhisthana chakra is ruled by Jupiter. The solar plexus is ruled by Mars. The heart chakra is ruled by Venus. It's Taurus and Libra. Then Mercury rules the throat, and then the luminaries, Cancer and Leo, rule the Ajna chakra. Now, these are all contained within the signs. My Neo-Vedic interpretation of the outer planets is that they are not necessarily correlated with the signs, right? While the first 7 planets all correlate with the signs, some might say that Pluto resonates with Scorpio, that Uranus resonates with Aquarius, that Neptune resonates with Pisces. There is not really, in terms of sign rulerships, I would separate them. And I would consider the outer planets to be neutral. So like all planets do better or worse in these signs, right? Saturn does great in Aquarius and Capricorn. It's neutral in Pisces and Sagittarius. It's debilitated in Aries, and it hates Scorpio. But it really loves Taurus and Libra. Saturn loves Taurus and Libra. So each of these planets does better or worse in the different signs because they have a relationship to those different signs. Neptune, Pluto, and Uranus are different. These are neutral in terms of their relationship to the sign. They are outside of the lights, of the colored lights of the signs and the chakra resonances. So whenever a outer planet is visiting any sign, how we know how it's going to do, we know it by the dispositor of that sign. And as well, we know it by wherever, how well Saturn is doing, for example, for Capricorn, Pluto and Capricorn. However Saturn is placed is going to say a lot. If it's debilitated in Aries, it has difficulty. If it's with its enemies, the sun or Mars, it's going to have difficulty. Because, as my friend Teresa has noted, dispositors are huge in Vedic astrology. The dispositor of a sign is showing what that sign is being channeled through. Now, whatever planets or cusps are in Capricorn are going to be channeled by Saturn. So, if you have Mars in Capricorn and it's exalted, for example, Pluto is going to amplify that, and that's going to be a positive thing. If you have Venus in Capricorn, Venus does well in Capricorn, and it also does well in Aquarius. So Venus is going to be amplified by Pluto in that moment. But Pluto is also going to amplify difficult placements, including the sun in Capricorn or Aquarius. If you've got the sun in Capricorn, it's probably been difficult for you, even though it's been in your lucky 5th house and Pluto's been transiting it. Good things probably came from that through difficulty. It's going to be the same thing if you have the sun in Aquarius in this period in the 6th house while Pluto's there. There's definitely difficulty to be described there. Ultimately, Pluto is an amplifier of whatever is happening in Capricorn. If you've got good things happening in Capricorn, especially because it's the 5th house for Virgo, great things probably happened while Pluto came through it. Now, while Pluto is in Capricorn for Virgo, the self-effort of your root chakra, because remember, Saturn rules Capricorn, Aquarius, and the root chakra. So Capricorn is the receptive dimension of the root chakra, self-effort for personal foundations. Your personal foundations for your root chakra was tested through the 5th house since 2008. For Virgo Rising in particular, of course, you've fought to redeem your primal soul passions from subordination. Now you're going to apply it to your debts, to your health and relationship habits for a deep and hopefully satisfying purge. And this is, of course, Aquarius is the 6th house. This is important to Virgo as the natural 6th sign. Pluto being in the 6th house is going to resonate with all things Virgoan, and this is going to give you a confrontation with Virgo's nature and its ability to digest. So bodily health is going to be very important for Virgo in this period. And you're going to want to use what you've learned from the previous period of Pluto and Capricorn. Use your passion for healing, really. Virgos are good healers in the material world. Use your love of knowledge. Use your ability to see and deal with financial realities and all things earthy. Develop some kind of whatever soul passion you've developed is going to help you and probably be involved with how you eliminate debt and ill health and balance your energy in terms of debt and health in through your 6th house while Pluto is here. So really, this is ultimately should be a satisfying purge here. Especially, it ultimately depends on how well Saturn is placed in your chart. Now, Neptune is, of course, coming up from Pisces, the Svadhisthana chakra, up to Aries, and this is the Aries is ultimately your 8th house. Pisces is actually the 7th house. So the Svadhisthana chakra for Virgo, they like to connect with their emotions, with people, in a way that's almost social. It's a social enjoyment, a intimate sort of enjoyment that happens with all things Pisces with regards to Virgo rising. Now, Neptune in Aries is the 8th house. Aries is more of an intimate thing for Virgo. Aries for Virgo is they are strong, hard-headed, and really they're the people who apply their will in group situations where Virgos are very important in any powerful group, because not everybody wants to speak to the annoying difficulties in a group. And the 8th house relates with psyche in a way. So Neptune is going to be challenging you in this period to, through Aries, through the 3rd chakra, through your will, you're going to be challenged to abide by the truth that you experience and move forward at the eternal 3rd chakra. The 3rd chakra is a spiritual, eternal thing for all of us. In this incarnation, we've got all this different karma, but we've always got a 3rd chakra. While Neptune tends to tune us into the infinite in this way. So whatever lessons you experience in terms of applying self-will of the truth that you feel you need to convey to your group, even when you're the annoying Virgo, that everybody always gives Virgo a hard time. If your Mars is well placed, remember, Virgo is thinking of rational, logical contributions and exploring through Scorpio. Scorpio rules the 3rd house as well as the 8th house for Virgo. Virgos are the people who are intimately figuring out the psychological dynamics of their group, whether it's your family, whether it's your friend groups, or whether it's an important business associates where this business associate, like let's say he's like, a person of a certain nationality, and that you've got another person on your team who's of another nationality, and let's say their religious and cultural things don't mesh or might clash, but they can be brought together in a firm way through the business that you're all mutually working through together. Virgo will know how to make the calls on saying you are being biased because of this particular thing in a way that is being detrimental to what we're all trying to do as a collective. And really, Virgos will be like the anti-racist in this way. They typically, when this is applied at its best, they will be making sure that there's no biases in the group, no emotional biases, nothing that will stop the group from having a practical, long-sustaining business relationship. And they will explore it through the scorpionic research in the 3rd house and the Aries willful application of will in the 8th house. Ultimately, what this amounts to is Virgo being granted an opportunity to keep their will, to keep their self-reliance, and to keep their pushiness so that they don't flounder with that. And this will be important because this will affect your mental health, because the 6th house also has to do with other employees, other people. So Pluto is going to be pushing you to deal with the infrastructure of whatever you're working within, to be a good subordinate employee, but also to speak your mind when you think that the company is being obstructed by someone else's ego. Virgo here is the real ego checker, and in order for you to do that, you have to check your own ego. Make sure you're not just speaking just for the sake of being heard. And if you have a strong Mars, you will naturally do this. And if you have a strong Saturn, Saturn won't pull you in ways that will make you feel like you are shaken at your nervous system level, and that you want to make sure you don't try to compensate for your own lack of health or your own stable routine by being pushy and demanding to people. Neptune will check the ego on that, but ultimately Neptune, this is what I have written, is that Neptune in Aries shows tests of accepting your need to apply ego and willpower appropriately when it comes to endurance, devotion, and discernment of the heart where investing time and money is concerned. Pay attention to your heart's integrity and the boundaries of your own life force in the face of opportunism, because Neptune in the 8th has a sexy, kinky vibe where it will desire to connect with opportunity and even to use its sexuality and erotic consciousness, but also just desire to, sexual energy can be colored by all the chakras and all of our consciousness. And there's an almost erotic desire to gain power, to gain ease, to gain social status through Neptune, through the use of your will, in order to be revered as the person who does the hard work, makes the hard calls, and to be respected at a level in your group for the hard calls that you make to things that need to be fixed and done. It's all very much things that Virgo's going to be working through, is making calls that you think are important as a leader of band dynamics, of group dynamics, and making sure that you don't act in a way that comes from emotional upheaval through what's happening in your personal relationships. This is a period where Pluto is ultimately calling you to work in important ways on your personal relationships in this way. So this has been my general spiel of Virgo Rising. Now we're going to get a little bit into what Virgo Rising can expect in the coming years while Pluto is transiting Aquarius. And thank you everybody for chatting with me and talking about what you've been talking about here. So while Pluto is in Aquarius for Virgo Rising, it's in the 6th. And from 2023 and 2026, you really want to be careful to be aware that Pluto in the 6th will be really gouging your health, your wellness, your own personal routine. Really, because there's going to be an economical difficulty while Pluto is in Aquarius, especially when Saturn hits Aries. And we're going to talk about that now. Saturn is the dispositor for Aquarius. So while Pluto is in Aquarius, wherever Saturn is going to be important as the channel for the narrative of Pluto and Aquarius at the time. So this will be an important period of pressure for Virgo. It's going to be a survival pressure to stay alive and to clear debt. Pluto and Aquarius might make you, for some reason, have things that put you into debt, even if you have a very good Saturn. If you have a very good Saturn, it will be debt that will serve you in the future. Virgo Rising in particular is someone who has to be aware of getting into appropriate debt, because there will be a calling for you where your finances have to go down before they go up in this period. You have to be very careful that you get into the right type of debt. Don't get into credit card debt. You know, you might even want to explore real estate or possibly things that are solid and tangible while the world goes through the Plutonian infrastructure changes. Because ultimately, you are going to possibly deal in the world of loans and stuff like that. And at first, there will be a compulsion for you to have what you need to survive. Maybe it's just getting a car, having an apartment that is difficult to pay for your rent and stuff like that, whatever it is. And while Saturn is moving through Pisces in 2023 with Neptune, there's going to be a desire you're really going to be dealing with marriage things, and you might even deal with getting married for some reason at this time. Be very discerning at this time. If you want to get married to somebody at this time, marry with them internally first, and wait really until before you get married, wait until Saturn comes into Aries for Virgo before you really tie any kind of knots, because this will be challenging all things marriage and relationship wise for Virgo. And if you're already in a marriage, this will be an extremely challenging time for you and your marriage partner, because again, Pluto is putting pressure on you psychologically and financially through the 6th. And you might feel like your marriage partner is not serving what you're trying to do here. In terms of getting into a marriage or getting out of a marriage, all bets should be off until Saturn comes into Aries, at which point there's going to be pressure and difficulty, but even Saturn really is even in with Neptune here. Ultimately, I'd say don't make any contracts or actually write your name on the dotted line in terms of marriage or business partnerships too much until Saturn gets to Taurus in your lucky ninth house. The ninth house relates with marriage and with your role in life. This would be a way better time for everything for Virgo. This will give you great luck. Saturn does better in the sign of Taurus. Saturn has Venus for a friend. This is really, you should really just be holding off, constraining your sexual chakra energy and your sublimate. You should sublimate it through brahmacharya and be conservative, but still appropriate and harmonious when it comes to emotional and erotic connections that you have with people. Don't eliminate it completely. I have Jupiter and Venus in Virgo, and you don't want to take from this that you should be eliminating your sexual chakras completely. I have to be open about that because I think it's healthy to convey my energy while I'm talking about all this stuff so that you guys can be objective about it. Venus is my Atmakaraka, so I think I still have wisdom to convey when it comes to my Venus in Virgo, where it's debilitated. Take that with whatever grain of salt you wish. Now, my point here is that as an astrologer, I think it's important to see that there will be emotional pressure here while Saturn is moving through the Svadhisthana chakra of everybody, of Pisces, with Neptune. Ultimately, Neptune and Saturn will join together around February of 2026 in Aries. So while it's moving through the marriage house, be careful of leaving or going, staying or going, but be discerning and ultimately think about the ninth house. Think about true Venus, where Venus is exalted in your seventh house. So really think of the best qualities of Venus, of true marriage connections. And when you're moving through this period, there's going to be a desire, a compulsion to connect in marriage because of the pain you're feeling in the sixth house, whether it's lack of debt or dignity, or you're getting under the thumb of the economy at this time. And you're going to desire just to fucking connect with anybody just to get out of that annoying pressure. This could bring you in alignment with other people who are also feeling this pressure. This is why don't go away from connecting with people completely. Just be discerning and appropriate, and don't sign your name on any dotted lines probably until about 2028 for the big picture. But you can start connecting with people in terms of marriage. Start feeling things out and investing energy. Just don't invest too much because Neptune and Saturn, your sixth house lord, is going to be putting great pressure on you while Saturn and Neptune are in the eighth house. Now, Virgo is one of the people in this period who I've been saying this for a few signs. Not every sign can apply this in exactly this way. But Virgo is one of the people who we can say, the phrase comes from Donald Trump. That's why I kind of laugh when I say it. I'm not here to talk politics or do the name game with anyone. But something that he has said in an ironic way is never waste a good crisis. Now, there's a Chinese phrase that says crisis and opportunity, they are connected on the same symbol in China and in Chinese language. There's a deep metaphor for crisis being an opportunity for all of us. And there is an opportunity for Virgos to connect your desire to eliminate debt with the infrastructure wipe in the complete economical changes that will be going on for the whole planet when Pluto's in Aquarius and its dispositor, Saturn, is debilitated in Aries with Neptune. It's really a freaky thing to think about, all things considered. But the paint will be wet for reality. The paint will be wet for earthy, economical related things. And the paint being wet is good for those who have a strong Mars ultimately, if you have a strong Mars and a strong Saturn, Saturn will allow Pluto not to decimate your 6th house. You won't be that compulsive, and you will be able to be one of the signs that are the material holders of what the new world is going to be looking like while this economic changes happens at this period. So be very discerning and appropriate with opportunism that happens in groups at this time, because there's going to be people looking to do things, looking to deal in real estate. Be very careful with big time investments, especially in this period, because ultimately it's your 8th house. It's a very vulnerable position. You should really, ultimately, I'd say be conservative from 2026 to 2028 with investment, but keep ties in investments, because for you, there's going to be a much better opportunity to make big investments that are much safer. The world will be getting back on its feet in 2028 to 2030. And when the world is getting back on its feet, Virgo really does better in stability. This is why Mars, the go, 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 Mars takes opportunities. Mars is an opportunist. And Mars likes to take opportunity. And this is a painful, difficult thing for Virgo. If you have a good Mars, then you can deal with it while still ultimately being secure. Because Virgos like to be secure. They ultimately have a strong 2nd house as connected to the 9th house. When Saturn reaches Taurus, you'll be able to make more stable, chaotic, risky opportunities, which is a warm place for Virgo to be, right? So during this period of 2023 to 2028, be a bit more conservative, but be aware when opportunities can come that are ultimately safe, I would say, because that's what Virgo likes anyway. And when the world is coming back to its feet, you will be one of the people who have energy to spare and money to spare. And you'll be able to use Saturn through the 9th. You'll connect to something that will help you to feel good and connected to your soul purpose while working out the debt that Pluto and Aquarius is bringing you. Now, in May of 2030, Saturn will be conjunct Uranus and the South Node in your 10th house. There's a lot of shaky opportunism here that can ultimately bring great opportunity in your career. And you will ultimately be trying to stabilize, really, and to engage and deliciously enjoy your 4th house. That's Sagittarius. And you will be wanting to work out things in your 4th house, because that's where the North Node is, because you will be sick of your 10th house at this point. You'll be sick of doing a lot of the career things that you've been working out. But Saturn is moving through your 10th house. I give people readings, and when I give them readings, I talk about Saturn where it is in relation to their 10th house. You know, if Saturn's in someone's 4th house, I say it's going to be a long time before you reach the pinnacle of your career, because this is Saturn being on the top of the chart. It's at the noon position. Everyone can see it. So really, Uranus being in your 10th has been doing a lot here as well. You're going through a lot of changes, and Saturn will stabilize and crystallize the positive dynamic chaos of your 10th house that has been happening. And Mercury, which rules Virgo, is ultimately a playful planet. It's playful in a stable way about material things and stabilizing economy and resources and these sorts of things. And Saturn being with Uranus and the South Node up here in the 10th house is going to be playfully and stably dealing with dynamic chaos as relates to career opportunities. And this will help you shake off and enjoy some of the difficulties that happened from 2023 to 2026. And this is Saturn coming up to your 10th house. It only happens once every 27 years. So this would be the best time for you to be exploring what you can do in your career as relates to the opportunities that you've developed through this trying time for most signs. And remember, so Virgo is one of the people that can take advantage of the crisis that happens between 2026 to 2025 to 2028, that area. And you'll be able to gain career things. You'll have career opportunities after all that. Now, in 2035, Saturn is around this area, 2035 to 2037. Saturn, which is the dispositor of Aquarius, will be visiting Leo and the North Node in your 12th house. This is Leo being your 12th house. This will be a time of loss. Really, what's probably going to happen is that you're going to be forced, because it's Saturn. Saturn's carrying the 5th and 6th house. And there's the North Node here. Because of a deep desire to develop on Leo and to develop on the 12th house, to develop on your spirituality, you are going to be letting go of the desire to be building stable routines and stable habits, stable monetary and financial resources. You're going to kind of let some of that go in this period just to be yourself, just to be you, just to be what you have always sought to be, which is someone who ultimately likes to work in the background and help other people. And you help yourself by helping other people. That's Leo being the transcendental 12th house for Virgo. So at this point, there is a loss indicated, but it will be a loss of the excess of what you've been doing while all of us have been developing on Pluto in the sign of the water bearer. Remember, the water bearer is a metaphor. In the Vedic terminology, the water bearer, what that means is developing a well for the collective. So while the collective is dealing with, especially with Saturn being debilitated, with Neptune there's going to be a collective need from 2026 really to about 2035 and even beyond. This is Pluto in the sign of Aquarius. The world is going to go through some socialistic changes, political changes, where the whole world is now leaning towards, really, I've been saying this in all these videos, the whole world has our energy coming from Pluto. I have to say this just to give it context for Virgo. While Pluto is in Leo, it's leaning towards manifestation in the material. So Leo, through Virgo to Libra to Scorpio to Sagittarius to Capricorn, this is all spirit manifesting in matter. And which means by the end, once it goes past Scorpio, Pluto's been in the lower chakras for so long that our spirit is subservient to matter. Now, once Pluto hits Aquarius, Pluto is moving up the chakras, and it's moving from material up to spirit, which means that in the periods coming forth, we are all aiming now, we're leaning towards the 6th chakra to spirituality, which means we are, as a collective, less dependent on the material infrastructure. But we have to develop the material infrastructure so that it serves our spirit. That's what Aquarius is all about. Aquarius is Saturn, it's the root chakra, leaning up towards Cancer and Leo at the 6th chakra. So what's happening at this point is that Saturn is going to be here in when it comes to Leo, because Virgo, because the collective has been building on the infrastructure of everybody. It's the water bearer. It's that, like I was saying in the intro, we are developing on a well. In the old days, people who lived close to the river were the rich people. The farmers and peasants lived far from the river because they were dealing with the crops. And they had to walk, in Indian times, ancient Indian times, people had to walk with buckets on their heads to get the water to bring it to the farmers. What the farmers would do in Aquarian times and moments is they would come together and build a well for the community so we didn't have to walk miles to get the water. This is what happens when Pluto is in Aquarius for all of us. When the economical crisis happens in 2026, I don't want to blow that up to be a huge thing, but whatever is implied by that, when Saturn is debilitated, Virgos, like all of us, are going to be working on this socialistic collective, and the infrastructure is changing, and Virgos will have been working on that for a very long time, and they will be trying to work out their own debts and ill health at that time. When Saturn is in the 12th house with the North Node in Leo, this will be the moment where you say, all right, I've been doing enough for the collective. Ironically, I've been doing enough for being subservient to my role in the collective, and the career things that you've been gaining through this pressure of what's happening in the collective. Once Saturn hits the 12th with the North Node in Leo, it's going to be a very important time for you to realize what is the center and purpose and meaning spiritually for what you've been doing for the collective. And it's going to be a deep moment of spiritual reconciliation for you in this moment. It's going to be a bit of an eye of the storm, because ultimately after this, Saturn's going to move on, and Pluto is going to remain in Aquarius. It's going to remain in your 6th house. You're going to be remaining dealing with your debts and such things. But while Saturn is moving through here, this is a period of letting go of the excess of what hasn't been working in your career as you've been dealing with the collective needs. So that as Saturn moves forward into Virgo and onward, you will have a better idea of what ultimately has functionally worked for you in your career. And that's when it goes down to the bottom of your chart. And this is going to be a very important time for Virgo, just like it's an important time for all of us at that time. Ooh, fuck. I think that's just about the end for my voice here, folks. It's okay. We made it. My voice just started getting to the end of it, right at the end of this session. But we made it. We got through half of the signs, and I'm very happy about that. So, Teresa, you're such a sweetheart. Thank you so much for that. Teresa just gave me a donation of $10. I really appreciate your patronage. But yeah, you're right. I need to go rest. I'm hanging out with my family tonight. Me and my brother are going to make a guitar book that we're going to play together for Christmas. And we're all very excited to be doing that. So I'm going to go and do that now. I'm going to hang out with my girlfriend, and I'm going to take a nice rest. For everybody that's been watching, I'm Dustin Cormier. This is How to Rock Astrology. I love doing this for you folks. I really just enjoy doing this, and it's also serving me in my career as somebody who wants to be well regarded as an astrological teacher and conveyor of insights for future things happening. So as time goes on, I'm going to be doing more stuff like this. Probably not for a while. These transit videos are going to cover us for the next 15 years plus. So that's why I wanted to get them done. It's how I roll as a Mars and Scorpio with Pluto and Scorpio person. This is how it tends to go for me. It's why I got these long videos. Let me know what you think in the comments, folks. Let me know what you think of everything that I've been doing. Any ideas for more videos? Any ideas for anything I should do? I'm always all ears, because not only do I love doing this for my own self and my career, but we are developing a community here as the world transforms and as the sovereignty is put into the hands of individuals. So my friend Rabbi is asking if I've considered selling copies of my guitar book online. You must mean doing chords, because I'm just taking chords off Google. I take the lyrics and print out the chords. Maybe it would be a cool, useful thing for me to play with. I'm writing a book right now on astrology, and that's my main focus. In the coming 2 years or so, I'm going to be writing a book. It's going to be called Tropical Vedic Astrology, and it's going to be me giving the root of all the stuff that I convey in all these videos that I do. So keep your eyes peeled when I get that book coming out, folks. I'm going to be happy to have it going on. But as for this moment, I'm going to be signing off. Thanks so much for everybody for hanging out. I hope you enjoyed Virgo Rising and all of these signs. Stay tuned sometime in January. I'm going to be coming on and I'm going to be doing the rest of this Pluto and Aquarius for the signs videos. So thanks again for everybody for watching. I'll see you guys on the flip side. Keep your eyes on the skies because there's always more stuff coming out in the world of tropical Vedic astrology, in the world of Dustin Cormier. Yes, Julie Woolley, I'm going to enjoy the heck out of the hot toddy that I enjoy at your request. Cheers, folks. We had lots of viewers today. Thanks so much for watching. Mwah. Take care.